by 2, now by 3. Beau Recall was last earlier and is flying on the far outside. Daddy is a Legend is finishing fast too. Godstormy needs that wire. Here's Beau Recall. Beau Recall from last to first. On the wire, length and a half to the good.
Alice Freedom on the inside is third. Sky Diamonds is languishing in fourth. Selcourt blazing through the stretch at Santa Anita Park has opened up 5 lengths in the Santa Monica Stakes. It's a brilliant win. Selcourt, 6 lengths at the wire.
The lead, Garana now second, but Street Band is beginning to move away, and this will be a signature moment for Street Band. She's 7-1, and she's got it. Street Band wins the cotillion just over 2 at the end. Horologist comes with a menacing bit on the outside of her, though. They're in the final furlong, and it's the New Jersey-bred Horologist who goes on by under Joe Bravo. She is a perfect 5 for 5 at Monmouth Park as she strolls in the Molly Pitcher.
Selcourt Kanaya tries to battle gamely on the inside, and they're 2.5 still in front of Sky Diamonds. It's Selcourt on the outside, having to work to shrug off Kanaya, who is defiant on her inside. Sky Diamonds has the last shot at the pair. Selcourt, Kanaya, Sky Diamonds coming. Selcourt in front. Selcourt wins from Kanaya with a head to Sky Diamonds, clear of just a little hope.
Sassy Sienna is third, Harbor Lights fourth. Final furlong, Amy's Challenge lead is half of what it was at the quarter pole, and here comes Wonder Godot and David Cabrera trying to gun down Amy's Challenge. A 16th out, now the lead's only a length. Wonder Godot, Sassy Sienna between horses. Wonder Godot takes the lead. Sassy Sienna gonna test her to the wire. Sassy Sienna, Wonder Godot right together. Wow, we might have a dead heat in the fantasy. That is an inch either way. Sassy Sienna and Wonder to Go hit it together.
Top of the stretch, Newspaper of Record still holding on to that lead in a hand ride while doing so. Juliet Foxtrot fully extended, switching to the outside. Beau Recall's putting in a late bid. 1 furlong to go. Newspaper of Record has to dig down deep. Here comes Beau Recall. Beau Recall runs her down. Beau Recall runs down Newspaper of Record and scores by 2 on the wire.
3/16 to go. Midnight Crossing in front of Gliding by Lacine's right on the back of the leader. And then comes Alicia's World, Responsible for Love. It's Midnight Crossing in front with a 16th to go. Lacine finally sees daylight. Alicia's World out deep. Midnight Crossing holding on. Midnight Crossing from Alicia's World, Lacine gliding by, and Responsible for Love fifth.
On their outside comes Storm the Hill. Insta Irma's making a big run, and she's coming on the far outside, so Storm the Hill and Pas de Souci. They're coming into deep stretch now. Insta Irma's putting in a big kick. She's coming up to Valadorna. These two going on from I'm Betty G. An 1/8 of a mile to go. Insta Irma and Drayden Van Dyke. Valadorna and Florent Giroux. These two tooth and nail, and it's a battle in the final 16. Valadorna, Insta Irma. Insta Irma, Valadorna, Insta Irma. And it's a second stakes win for Baltus and Van Dyke at the meet.
Lady Prancelot down the outside. Blowout, still the one to catch. The Mac and Bullet to the inside. Delika, Lady Prancelot is there. Catch a Bid is running late but fifth. Grandstand side. Blowout, the Mac and Bullet. Lady Prancelot alongside. Lady Prancelot puts a head in front, a deep stretch. Lady Prancelot, and Joe Bravo to win the Pin Oak Valley View.
Here comes Lady Prancelot. They're a furlong from home. Lady Prancelot finding room along the inside as Mucho Unusual takes the lead. Mucho Unusual, Lady Prancelot, head and head for the wire. On the outside, Mucho Unusual, Lady Prancelot, brilliantly ridden by Joe Bravo to win the American Oaks.
On the outside, Horologist, then Dunbar Road, and Point of Honor. And here is Horologist to take over with an 1/8 of a mile to the finish. Latruska has dropped out of it. Dunbar Road on the outside. It's Horologist in front here. Dunbar Road, Point of Honor towards the rail. Horologist is going to pull off the upset. in the Grade 2 Beldame. She won by 3.
On the inside, Beau Recall. The Basilica's starting to trouble in the white blinkers on the outside. Storm the Hill, the leader. Basilica coming home gamely. Beau Recall down at the rail. Storm the Hill, Beau Recall, Basilica. Whoa, bother the nose.
Beau Recall is hurtling down the outside. Madame Stripes headed by Beau Recall, who comes from the back and wins powerfully by a length to Thundering Sky, who got up for second. Madame Stripes third, and Ola Gray was fourth.
As they turn into the stretch, and Street Band takes over. Street Band of the Indiana Oaks scampers clear by 5 lengths. Sunday's at the Beaches in second. Kim K drops back in third. Chocolate Kiss is outside fourth, but with a 16th to go, it's Street Band. Street Band and jockey Sophie Doyle, an impressive winner in the Indiana Oaks.
away by 2, now by 3. Bull Recall was last earlier and is flying on the far outside. Daddy is a Legend is finishing fast too. Godstormy needs that wire. Here's Bull Recall. Bull Recall from last to first. On the wire, length and a half to the good.
Alice Freedom on the inside is third. Sky Diamonds is languishing in fourth. Selcourt blazing through the stretch at Santa Anita Park has opened up 5 lengths in the Santa Monica Stakes. It's a brilliant win. Selcourt 6 lengths at the wire.
The lead, Garana now second, but Street Band is beginning to move away, and this will be a signature moment for Street Band. She's 7-1, and she's got it. Street Band wins the cotillion just over 2 at the end. Horologist comes with a menacing bid on the outside of her, though. They're in the final furlong, and it's the New Jersey bred Horologist who goes on by under Joe Bravo. She is a perfect 5 for 5 at Monmouth Park as she strolls in the Molly Pitcher.
Selcourt Kanaya tries to battle gamely on the inside, and they're 2.5 still in front of Sky Diamonds. It's Selcourt on the outside, having to work to shrug off Kanaya, who is defiant on her inside. Sky Diamonds has the last shot at the pair. Selcourt Kanaya, Sky Diamonds coming. Selcourt in front. Selcourt wins from Kanaya with a head to Sky Diamonds, clear of just a little hope.
Sassy Sienna is third, Harbor Lights fourth. Final furlong, Amy's Challenge lead is half of what it was at the quarter pole, and here comes Wonder Godot and David Cabrera trying to gun down Amy's Challenge. A 16th out, now the lead's only a length. Wonder Godot, Sassy Sienna between horses. Wonder Godot takes the lead. Sassy Sienna gonna test her to the wire. Sassy Sienna, Wonder Godot right together. Wow, we might have a dead heat in the fantasy. That is an inch either way. Sassy Sienna and Wonder to Go hit it together.
Top of the stretch, Newspaper of Record still holding on to that lead in a hand ride while doing so. Juliet Foxtrot fully extended, switching to the outside. Bull Recall's putting in a late bid. 1 furlong to go. Newspaper of Record has to dig down deep. Here comes Bull Recall. Bull Recall runs her down. Bull Recall runs down Newspaper of Record and scores by 2 on the wire.
3/16 to go. Midnight Crossing in front of Gliding by Lacine's right on the back of the leader. And then comes Alicia's World, Responsible for Love. It's Midnight Crossing in front with a 16th to go. Lacine finally sees daylight. Alicia's World out deep. Midnight Crossing holding on. Midnight Crossing from Alicia. World Lacine gliding by and Responsible for Love fifth.
On their outside comes Storm the Hill. Insta Irma's making a big run, and she's coming on the far outside, so Storm the Hill and Pas de Souci. They're coming into deep stretch now. Insta Irma's putting in a big kick. She's coming up to Valadorna. These two going on from I'm Betty G. An 1/8 of a mile to go. Insta Irma and Drayden Van Dyke. Valadorna and Florent Giroux. These two tooth and nail, and it's a battle in the final 16. Valadorna, Insta Irma. Insta Irma, Valadorna, Insta Irma. And it's a second stakes win.
Hey, if I could just have everyone's attention for just 1 second, please. Yeah, if I could have everyone's attention for a second. First of all, I just want to thank everyone for coming out. I know it's a Wednesday night after the election. Everybody's probably worn out, but this is probably a much-needed diversion. So we didn't plan that, but I'm sure everybody's glad to be out of the house and away from the TV and have some fun and hopefully make some money tonight. So I'm Mark Taylor, and I'm from TaylorMade Farm, and my brothers and I have been in business, in the horse business, since probably birth, really. But my brother Duncan founded the farm in 1976. And we're really, at our heart, a service company. You know, we're horsemen and we're marketers and we're salespeople, but really we're a service company. So at our core, we just are all about taking care of customers and trying to bring new people into the horse business, give them great experiences, and help them reach their goals, whatever their goals may be. So just a brief little snippet about Medallion Racing and how it came to be. Is for years and years, we were always exclusively focused on helping people breed horses for the commercial market, invest in brood mares, invest in weanlings, those kind of things. And then in 2015, we did a deal and we bought the breeding rights to California Chrome. So we really bought him as a stallion prospect, but through you know, a lot of luck and a lot of hard work, he ended up taking us on this amazing ride, and we won some of the biggest races in the world. And you know, for a brief period of time, he was the winningest horse in the history of racing, and it was just incredible. And so a lot of the people that invested with us in California Chrome, you know, they kind of caught the bug. There was a lot of our customers who were primarily breeders, but they love racing, they love the excitement, and they never had a vehicle to get into racing in some kind of way that they wanted to get in at the top. They didn't want to have to go through all the things. When you buy unproven horses or unraced horses, you just never know what you're going to get. So we decided in, what year, Phil?
The end of 2016.
Yeah, the end of 2016, we said, okay, let's try to be more systematic about this. Let's raise some capital, go identify proven horses, proven fillies, and we came up with a model that we think gives people really an unparalleled chance of running in big races. There's really no other syndicate that's doing what we're doing as far as, you know, buying horses that are on the cusp of getting to graded stakes level competition. And we're also buying exclusively fillies, which gives you downside protection with residual value for their broodmare careers. And then it was complete just fate that we hooked up with Phil, because he was coaching my kids in swimming. We kind of knew him a little bit through a mutual friend, but he's kind of the secret sauce, because he knows racing inside and out. And if any of y'all have ever seen Moneyball, that's kind of what he brings to the thing, is he tries to identify horses that are on their way up. You know, maybe there's more blue sky there that's unearthed. We'll give up things like we might give up a little pedigree, might give up sire power, but we want an athlete. We want a horse that's going to get our investors to the winner's circle. So anyway, the first go around, we were just, it was a big experiment. Nobody knew how it was going to work, and it went really well. We've had a lot of success. We've been through 2 partnerships. We're just winding down the second one now. And it's really getting a lot of traction. We're getting a lot of people reaching out to us that they've noticed what we're doing and they're curious. And so I think it's just taking the TaylorMade brand and applying it to racing partnerships. It's been a ton of fun, and it's also a way for us to evangelize our sport, because this is the greatest game ever. You know, in some of those races that they just played on the screen there, it's like Hair Club for Men, the guy that says, I'm not only the CEO and president, but I'm also a customer. So, like, I've got my own money in Medallion, and I breed horses, and I've been doing that for years, and yeah, it's fun, you know, and I like making money, but I've got money in Medallion, and when I come home and my family and I are sitting around the couch, and we're going nuts because Bo Recall is coming, just mowing down these Grade 1 winners, you know, it's an adrenaline rush that's different than what I get from just running my day-to-day business. So, you know, I'm in Medallion, my brothers are, you know, we're in alongside everybody else. We get the same deal everybody else does, and it's just a ton of fun. So it's a way to introduce people to the business and just enjoy the ride together. But that's what we're talking about now, but we're going to get to picking some winners. Most of you guys are in on a betting consortium, and hopefully we're going to take down some big tickets this weekend and make everybody a little quick return on their investment. But I'm going to turn it over to Phil, and he's going to talk about the night, kind of what we're doing, and get into more details.
Yeah, thanks again, everybody, for coming out. You know, kind of like Mark said, what we try to do is we try to say there are a lot of great partnerships out there. We want to do something a little bit different. and we're just really focused on a high-level experience that, you know, people are spending millions of dollars on their own to try to get, and a lot of them aren't successful at because it's a very tough game. Through our first two partnerships, was lasted 4 years. We've had 145 starters, and over 25% of those are in grade ones. So it's the top echelon of racing in America. Over 65% are in graded stakes. So we just try to focus on delivering this specific experience. And because we're partnered with TaylorMade, we think it's at least a more investor-friendly model because there's no markup to the customer when we go buy a horse. TaylorMade gets to sell 100%, which allows us to make a commission off somebody that's not you, compared to a lot of other partnerships that you have to finance their business. So, you know, with those two things, we feel like we have a very unique product that we're really happy about, and hopefully we'll get 2 horses, hopefully in the winner's circle this weekend at the Breeders' Cup. But yeah, we'll take one. But with that said, we're going to go ahead and so what we're going to do is we're going to go quickly through all of the races for both days. We'll spend won't spend as much time on some will spend a little more time. Once we get through that, we'll talk a little bit. The second half will be kind of like a Q&A. Anybody has questions, if you have a question in advance, you can feel free to write it down, or you can text my phone, which is, for any of you that have a pen, it's 859-433-5122, and you can just text me, and we'll get to it at the end. Give that one more time. Yeah, it's 859-433-5122, and if you text me, once we get to the Q&A part, we'll answer it. We're going to talk a little bit about ticket construction. We'll talk about the betting syndicate, how that's going to work. I think we're over 20 grand at this point, but we'll go from there. So with that, Megan is our wonderful host. She's from TVG. We won't hold it against her, but she's a U of L grad. She knows some of the TaylorMade crew, and then we have Jonathan Kinchin, who's on Fox Sports 1. His group last year hit the pick six for $150K. So he's going to be betting a big portion of the syndicate's money. So hopefully we can have a repeat of last year. So with that, we'll get started. I don't want to take too much time talking about this. We'll try to get to the winners.
That's going to share between the two of you guys.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming out tonight. We're really excited to be with you here tonight and to hopefully give you some winners as we are going through the card. I know, Jonathan, you've probably dug into it already, as I have, and are excited for Breeders' Cup week and looking forward to all that we have to offer for the Breeders' Cup races. Of course, best of luck to Medallion Racing. I apologize if I don't select your horses or if Jonathan doesn't. They didn't pay us to, so.
That just means we're getting a bigger price.
Exactly. So with that, I guess the first race that we'll go to, obviously on Friday, Future Stars Friday, I can speak, will be race number 6. At the end of when we're done talking about Friday, we've got a graphic for you guys. Each of us put together a pick 5 ticket for Friday. And then on Saturday, there'll be a pick 6 ticket. So it's just a base. Of course, you can spend more if you want, spend less if you want. But we put together tickets that are under $250. I went over budget on pick 6 on Saturday. I can't help it. I just like to shop. So it's going to be exciting. We're hopefully going to hit a few big winners. And with that, Philip, do you want to talk about race 6 and introduce it, where we're starting?
Yeah, so we're going to start with the juvenile turf sprint. One thing that I know Jonathan will get into in just a second, but you get these turf sprints, speed is paramount. So in a lot of these races, I'm just looking for horses that are going to be within a couple lengths of the lead early. It's very tough at 5.5 furlongs to close ground. I think that leaves you to the obvious horse, who's the 14 on the outside, Golden Pal. He looks like the fastest horse in the race as far as getting early position. He looks like he's probably just the fastest horse, period. And to me, he's the most, maybe one of the most logical winners of the whole card on Friday, so I'll kick it to JK.
Yeah, I think that turf sprints, obviously, if you live in Lexington, you go to Keeneland all the time, and you play those 5.5 turf sprint, and you say there's a lot of speed in here, it's going to fall apart, and then some horse wires the field. And I think that that's something that I had to learn, being at Saratoga quite a bit, and also spending a lot of time here, is you want horses that are going to be forward in these turf sprints. There's not a lot of room for error in terms of trip and pace and all these types of situations, and Golden Pal's a freak. The speed figure that Golden Pal earned at Saratoga and the Skidmore was older horse fast, and I love the draw for this horse. I think a lot of times people think that these wide post positions are bad. I think that in 2-turn races they can be bad, especially with a short run to the first turn. They can be a little bit of a problem. Just geometry comes into play. You lose ground in that first turn, second turn, but in a 1-turn race like this, I don't see it to be a problem for Golden Pal, especially because he's so fast. I think he'll probably get to the 2-3 path at the worst going into the first turn. He's better than these. A lot of times, people want to try to get cute in these turf sprints because they don't have a lot of confidence in turf sprints, so they just start picking lots of different horses, hoping that chaos happens and some 27-1 shot wins. I'm going to be playing this race ice cold for the most part with Golden Pal. I'll have a couple of Saver tickets, and I'll talk to you a little bit about Saver tickets and what I mean by that when we get to the ticket construction stuff a little bit later. But I think After 5, who had a trip last time, missed a break, came running late, and then Bodenheimer, the 10. So the 9 and the 10, I think, are some alternatives if you are allergic to chalk. But I'll encourage you to let that allergy, don't let it control you. If there's a chalk horse that's going to win, what I've learned is that if you can just kind of hike up your pants, clear your throat, and lean on that one horse, that's the value that you think you're looking for, rather than using 8 horses when you know the 6-5 shot's going to win.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I mean, I definitely think that Golden Pal is the horse to beat in here. I'm not too concerned. He's had a couple of good races, with his 2 second-place efforts, his win last time, the fact that Wesley Ward brought him over to Royal Ascot. I mean, he obviously is one that he has a ton of confidence in. I agree with Jonathan about the speed that this horse brings, so it does seem to be one of those, if you're looking for a single somewhere, possibly it's this horse for the beginning of that pick 5 ticket. But of course, you do want to give yourself maybe a couple more options if you're putting together a bigger ticket, or you want to play a couple of long shots just straight up for race number 6. And I actually went to a horse that was in the same race as After 5, who you mentioned, and I like as well, and that's the 7 Momos. And part of my background, I've ridden horses for 20 years of my life, galloped a little bit at Blackwood Stables. I came from the jumper background, but watching the horses themselves and watching race replays, I know it's something we all do, and it's something that I put a lot of emphasis on in my handicapping. So I really thought that this colt was one that overraced in his last race. He was coming off a little bit of a freshening. I think he used himself too much in the beginning stage of that race and in the middle as well. It was his first time on the turf. I think he's extremely well bred for this type of a turf sprint race. So from a breeding angle, and also from the fact that I just don't think he had his best showing that day, his first time on turf, I'm willing to give him a little bit more of a chance. And at 15-1 for a long shot, I think he's one you can consider. He also, though, will be a part of that early speed scenario. So you're looking at a potential speed duel with a few of these horses in here, unless Golden Pal is just faster than the rest of them and they can't catch him at all. So I went a little bit deeper for my pick 5 for the opening leg of this sequence. So I included the 14, which is Golden Pal, the 7, Monos, which we just talked about, and the 9, which I believe is After 5, After 5 as well, who Jonathan likes. So there's a couple of different ways I think you can go for this first leg, but either it's one of those where I think you spread a lot or you single up with Golden Pal. The 2 others I use in my ticket, which you'll see, are the 4 and the 5. So I threw Country Final in there, who comes out of that same race at Belmont and has had a race last time at Kentucky Downs I thought you could just throw out. And other than that, his form has been pretty good. They actually thought of him as a dirt horse earlier on in his career. And 5, which is Cowan, was in there as well for Steve Asselson. So I'm going deep in the first leg of that pick 5 sequence, which brings us to race number 7. And Phil, I'll let you go first on that one.
Yeah, so in here, if you have your past performances, if you look at the 5 Cadillac, One thing you'll see down here for those of you guys that aren't big handicappers is if you look at these italics that appear on the far right where the horses' names are, so you can see this horse's his second start in a grade 2. He ran second, and his name is italicized. That means he won his next start. In that start, he got beat by a horse named Max Swinney. Max Swinney came back and won the premier grade 1 race in Europe at a mile. And in his next start, he won, and then you can see Van Gogh is italicized. Van Gogh came back to also win a grade 1 in France. So to me, Cadillac, he's a horse I really like. He will be a strong. I think Jessica Harrington, the trainer, is very accomplished. Shane Foley is a great rider, but they're not the big name European connections. It's not Aidan O'Brien for Coolmore or John Gosden or Godolphin or one of the big connections. The other thing, this is getting a little more into it, but he's run twice on a left-handed track. So in Europe, a lot of the tracks go the opposite direction of America, or they're just straight and there's no turns. And there actually aren't very many left-handed tracks. So he's 2 for 2 on a left-handed track, which would be the same style of races in America. I think he's been running against a lot better horses. And I'm actually hoping he's 6-1 morning line. I hope he floats up a little just because it's not the Jessica Harrington is an elite level trainer in Europe, but she just hasn't quite had very much success in the U.S., mainly due to lack of opportunity. So he would be a strong play for me on Saturday.
So I like Cadillac as well. I think this, a lot of times with these 2-year-old turf races, I look at them like, is this a Euro race or an American race? The Philly race, I think, is an American race. This race, I think, is a Euro race. So I'm going to be using a lot of them, especially in a multi-race format. You can do that. You don't have to have a strong opinion in every race. People think that you have to pick a horse in every race, and you don't. You can toss a horse in a race and have just as much oomph behind that opinion as picking one. I'm going to toss a horse in here by the name of Battleground. That's the 9 horse. Battleground's going to be unbelievably overbet because Aidan O'Brien, obviously. I think Chad Brown might not agree with me, is arguably the best turf trainer in the world. Chad would disagree, I'm sure. But this horse is unbelievably bred. Warfront out of Found. Found actually won the turf here the last time the Breeders' Cup was at Keeneland. She beat Golden Horn that day. But I listen to my friend Nick Luck quite a bit when it comes to these horses that are coming from overseas, and we did a podcast with him earlier this week. You can find it on our deal, Nick Luck. But he talked about every horse individually, and he just was not moved by this horse. And if he's not moved by the horse and the horse is going to be overbet, that's my opinion here. My value is to not use Battleground, and the horse is going to probably be 5-1 or less, I would imagine. I'm going to use the 2 horses towards the inside, the 1 Seal Away and the 2 New Mandate. In these turf races, I like horses that can get that pocket trip. And what I mean by that pocket trip is you're sitting right in behind the leaders, but you're tucked in on the rail. A lot of these turf horses will shut off down there, start to relax a little bit. If you guys are involved in medallion racing, it's the opposite of what Beau Recall does. She takes back and comes wide. I'm talking about horses that are saving ground down on the inside. I think it's the best trip you can have in turf racing, unless, of course, the pace is really fast. And I think that these 2 horses project to get that trip. New Mandate has been a little bit aggressive early in his career, and I'm hoping that sitting in behind horses with a little maturity, he'll shut off a little bit. And Seal Away has a very fast speed figure, so I'm hoping that speed figure will translate over here to the U.S. And so I'm going to use 1, 2, 5, and 12 in my equation, and you'll notice that that's not any American horses. I'll let them beat me if they beat me here, and we'll see what happens. If I was going to use one, maybe Public Sector or Outador, but I'm going to go Euros in this race.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Jonathan. I mean, I've got actually a few Euros on top, the 12 being one of them. Go Atletico, who's just been unbelievable. Has been racing in France, most recently at Chantilly at the Group 2 level. So stepping up to a Grade 1 here. It is a little bit of a class hike, but at 10-1, I thought it was a solid price. And I like the way that this horse has been running. He's one that typically overseas has gone to the lead. Now, of course, anytime we talk about international form versus the speed that we have here in the U.S., we are quicker usually from the gate. So that speed might not always hold. Horses that are used to leading could end up finding themselves stalking the pace. But I liked the numbers that he's run so far, the times that he's run as well, he is going to stretch out a little bit from a sprint to a mile distance, which is the same thing with Seal Away, a horse that you liked as well. And comparatively, this is a horse, Seal Away, the one, who ran on a heavy track. So we are going to have perfect, beautiful weather here at Keeneland. So we're not going to have that rain that I think a lot of the Europeans would love to have. So it's going to be bright and very, very dry, I believe. But the time that this horse ran for 7 furlongs, 123 and change, and to win by 8 lengths, it was just an absolutely massive figure that day. So I definitely think Seal Away is a horse to use, and Go Atletico and him have been kind of going head to head. So I figured if you like the 1, you kind of have to like the 12 as well, and at a little bit of a price. I use Battleground. I don't love to hear that Nick Luck didn't love him, because I do love Nick and I think he's very talented, but this horse is so well bred. He's carrying significantly less weight than he has been overseas. He's going from 128, 29, 27 pounds to 122. So this will be a little bit easier for him to get over that ground. And he is a horse that I think could improve and do well here stretching out, but I didn't love the fact that his time was so slow comparatively to the other horses that had gone 7 furlongs over even rougher conditions, over wetter conditions. The last horse I threw in there was the 6, actually, for Todd Pletcher, talking about quite a few horses in here that do have that early speed. This is a closer, so you're just going to wait until those horses up front kind of tire themselves out and come running late. And the fact that this is a horse, I picked some that are stretching out from a sprint to a mile distance before. This is a horse that's gone longer and is getting a little bit less to work with here. So I ended up using the 6 as well at 5-1 for Shadwell Stables.
All right, so next we get into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. This is the smallest field of the weekend. TaylorMade has a little bit of an interest in this one. We stand not this time, who's the sire of Princess Noor. This is one of, I think, just a great, from a fan perspective, is such a great race. There are 4 undefeated fillies in here, and a couple of them look like they could be very serious. You have Simply Ravishing, the 1, Day Out of the Office, the 3, Girl Daddy, the 5, and then Princess Noor's the 7. I've been really taken aback by Simply Ravishing. I think Keeneland, for those of you guys that if you go to the race a lot, they always say in the short stretch. So any mile and a 16th race, it's a very short run into the first turn, and the stretch is not as long. They finish at the 16th fold, not at the wire. I think that could be a disadvantage for Princess Noor. I think the 1 and the 3 both have a lot of speed. I think Princess Noor could end up either going wide or having to take further back. Out of the race, if you just had to give a talk pick, I'd probably pick Girl Daddy. I think Jonathan was talking about that pocket trip. I think she gets it the perfect trip. I think the 1 and the 3 could be right out there on the lead, and she could be sitting right in behind and just pounce and maybe get the better trip of the group. But in a multi-race sequence, we can talk about it when we get into betting. But to me, this is one you either have a strong opinion and you just single one of the horses you like, whether it's Simply Ravishing, Down to the Office, or Princess Noor, or you basically have to play all of them. And I think they basically cut your ticket down to 25% if you single. So you can either bet it for $4 or you can play it for $1 is the way I would think about it with races like this, where there's a lot of logical horses that are all going to be pretty similar prices.
I'm a believer in speed figures. And if you're interested, you should read Buyer on Speed by Andy Buyer. It kind of like lays out how he comes up with these numbers, and it's a science that I believe in. Princess Noor is not that fast on speed figures, but I do think that there's more to the story. She's been winning very easily, so sometimes if you don't get to the bottom of a horse, you don't know what you really want to do. Authentic's an interesting horse in the Classic. I think he wants to go faster. The slower they go early, the worse off he is. So I think that there's a lot to be said about Princess Noor, and possibly that in a race in a race where she's kind of drug along a little bit more by more talented horses, she might do better. Me personally, the way that I attack the races, I'm looking to make big scores on big days. I don't have to be right in every race. I just need to be right in a couple of races and then be smart in other races. And in this race, I'm just going to be using a lot of horses. I'm going to use Princess Noor. I'm going to use Day Out of the Office, Girl Daddy, VQuist, Simply Ravishing, 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7. And I'll be a fan for this race. I'll hope for a great performance, and I'll realize, like I said, too many people get caught up in having to have the answer to every race. You're not going to have the answer to every race, and I don't have the answer to this one. I will at about 3:55 p.m. on Friday, but I don't at 3:50, and so let me just get through this race and try to run this non-opinion with some of my opinions. So I think Princess Noir will be my pick because I think she might make that jump, but I wouldn't be shocked if Vequist runs off the screen.
I'm going to go just too deep in here. I like both the horses on the outside. The 7, which we talked about, Princess Noir. She's obviously very talented. A huge fan of Not This Time, who I just think is one of the most physically well put together horses that I've ever seen. So excited that we finally saw him have a progeny who was able to get a longer distance. So I'm a big fan of Princess Noir. She's got her speed. She hasn't faced too many horses in California. Her numbers have been pretty good. I don't know that the quality that she's been up against has been the best for some of those younger races, but I also use Simply Ravishing because her numbers to me were actually better than Princess Noir. So I'm going to use Simply Ravishing as my top pick, include Princess Noir, because I can't throw her off of there. The one thing that concerns me about these two fillies is that they're both very speedy types. Simply Ravishing, though, does draw the rail. It's not a huge field, so it's not like the 7 Princess Noir is coming from, the 14 post or something. But Simply Ravishing, I think, will have an easier time getting that tactical position. She's already won here at Keeneland. It was her best number of her career. I love the fact that I think she's had the right amount of time between those races for what she likes. So I'm going to put her on top at a little bit of a off odds of 5-2.
So next we get into the second last race on Friday. This is the Juvenile Fillies Turf. I think one thing Jonathan talked about earlier was sometimes it's just having an opinion against a horse that's going to be one of the favorites. And for me, the second choice or co-second choice in here is Campanelle. And I would just be completely against this horse. She's never been beyond 6 furlongs. She's undefeated. She won a Group 2 at Royal Ascot. She came back and won a Grade 1 in France. But to me, Wesley's had a lot of these horses before. They almost always run in the Juvenile Turf Sprint. So I kind of like – I think JK's right. If you look at the Colt version of this race, Euros have won like 8 of the last 14. If you look at the Philly version, they've won like once or twice. The Philly version, for whatever reason, just turns out to be a lot more American winners for whatever reason. I like Plum Ally, who's the 4. She's got a little more experience. She's undefeated. She can sit close to the pace. I think Aunt Pearl, the 5, could be a freak. She's going to be the favorite, and I wouldn't be surprised if Aunt Pearl actually gets down with Brad Cox and Giroux. So for me, I like the 4. If I was going to play a little bit of a horse at a price, I think the 9 Madone is coming in from California and is going to quicken. So she would be a price at 10-1, but this isn't a race I went super deep in.
So for the sake of not dragging this out like the election, I'll be quick here. I love Aunt Pearl. Lope de Vega, the sire there, was the sire of one of my favorite horses, Newspaper of Record, which you guys might be familiar with because you ran her down at Churchill. I just think Aunt Pearl's too fast for these horses. I think she's going to get out to the front, and she's just too good. I think she could be a special type. And typically I don't play California turf horses on the East Coast. Now, Bull Recall's a little bit different because she's had success out here, but there's other ones that if they're doing good out there and they come out here, it's not the same. And so, Madone and the other ones that are coming from California, I fade. Campanelle, the only thing I'll say about this is this move, I like to, look, Wesley has a lot of success with 2-year-olds. When they start getting a little bit older, I like to try to poke holes in them. But what he has done successfully is he did this with Hootenanny. He won that race, that 6 furlong race in France, the Grade 1, and then came back here and won the 2-turn race. Because I do think that those straights over there play a little bit more to stamina. You don't slow down into the turn. I think that sometimes, so I would use maybe defensively with Campanelli, but that's how I'm going to play it. Defensively is like a saver ticket, which we'll talk about more, but I'm ice cold with Aunt Pearl.
Not too different for me here. It's I'm on the 5-horse Aunt Pearl as well, who I just think has been super classy and love the way that she's been running. She really hasn't done anything wrong for me. And then I add the 10 Campanelle just because you can't go against that class. And I agree with Jonathan. I think that international form really preps her well for a race like this. So it's all about the 5 and 10 for me.
All right, so the final race on Friday is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. This would be, you're going to have Jackie's Warrior in here who's 7-5 morning line. He could come down. in general, I've made a ton of money in the past just blanket betting against horses that are coming out of New York into the Breeders' Cup. The Champagne at Belmont is a one-turn race, so this will be his first time at 2 turns. Keeneland could be a little bit of a factor. Normally, Keeneland doesn't have a Breeders' Cup, so you can bet them because they're going to run at Santa Anita or Churchill or somewhere else, and the short stretch can kind of save a horse that gets leg weary. But to me, I absolutely love Essential Quality. I think he was very green and had a really awful trip first time out, and he just was miles the best. He came back at Keeneland. I still think he was pretty green. He showed he could sit basically right on the lead the whole way, and he just was miles better than those horses. He's 1 for 1 at Keeneland. I hope I get 4 to 1. I couldn't fault anybody that went with Jackie's Warrior. He obviously is a talented horse. But in general, I think he's going to take a ton of money, and I think the last horse to win the Champagne and win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile was like 2012, and Uncle Mo did it. But outside of that, if you look over the last 20 years, there are very few winners of the Champagne that win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So for obvious reasons, I think the 1 turn to 2 turn can be big. So I'd go with Essential Quality.
Yeah, so I have a pretty simple opinion here as well. I think it's between Reinvestment Risk and Jackie's Warrior. And Philip mentioned the idea of that 1 turn to 2 turn. I want to take a couple of seconds just to talk about that a little bit, because it's a conversation that comes up all the time. Oh, that horse might not like 2 turns, might want to go 1 turn. And I realized that maybe a couple of years ago, I didn't realize even what I meant by that. Like, what am I just say it, but I don't even know what it meant. And I've been lucky enough to share the desk with Richie Migliori and Gary Stevens, and I've asked both of them over adult beverages, what is the difference? And they both believe that a horse with stamina questions, the 1 turn mile is more taxing because they do not have to slow down into that first turn. When they slow down into the turn, it helps them have more energy. But in a straightaway, it's an all-out run for half a mile, and it can be a little bit more taxing. So while I don't think the extra 16th of a mile is going to be any issue for Jackie's Warrior, because that horse shows a ton of early speed and continues to finish his races, and I'm probably going to call Jackie's Warrior a her before this is over, but I'm going to try not to. This horse is fast, and maybe the 2 turns is actually takes away that weapon that he has. And if that's the case, to me, the only other horse that can win is Reinvestment Risk. I know Reinvestment Risk hasn't won in the last 2 starts, and that Jackie's Warriors kind of stuffed him in a locker the last couple of times. But I do believe that if for whatever reason Jackie's Warrior doesn't fire, Reinvestment Risk will. I'm going to be pressing, and we'll talk about that later, but I'm going to be pressing most of my opinion through Jackie's Warrior, but I'll have some savers on Reinvestment Risk.
Just to piggyback off of what Jonathan said with the 1 turn mile races, if anybody in here ran track and field and you ran the 400, that's like the longest sprint. You don't get a chance to measure yourself. It's not the 800. It's not any of those longer distance races. I ran that myself and I absolutely hated it. So that to me is what I try to compare in human terms. The 400 meters is exactly what it is for the 1 turn mile. It's just an all-out sprint for a longer distance. So I agree. They don't have a chance to take a breath. I used the same 2 horses that these gentlemen did, but the only other one I added was Sittin' on Go for Dale Romans, who year after year after year, we see him come back with a talented 2-year-old, and he's been so unlucky. Obviously not this time, being one of those horses. I think Dale has a specialty of really identifying some young 2-year-old talent, especially in the classic races like this, and I think he's gotten that with Sittin' on Go. I love the way that this horse was able to close last time. He just absolutely fired away from the rest of the group. And looking through this field, and we have to talk about pace of the race, especially because it is the Breeders' Cup and it is a longer distance race. The fact that he is one that will save ground, I think, is actually much to his advantage. So I'm hoping that some of those lower priced horses that do have the speed, Reinvestment Risk not being one of them, as he'll likely stalk the pace, will kind of run each other down, and then Sittin' on Go will be able to wait to press that go button until the final stages. I just love the way that he's prepped, and with his local stuff here in Kentucky, he hasn't had to move too far. So I'm going to go with Dale and give him one more try and hope that he takes on the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
All right, so with that, we'll switch over to Saturday. We'll go with the Filly and Mare Sprint first. This is a race I'm a huge just pace handicapper. I try to figure out what the early pace is going to be, and that dictates my opinion. If it looks like there's a lot of speed, I'll try to favor closers. If it looks like there's, very little pace, and I'll try to play front runners. I think in dirt races, generally front runners just win more often. I wanted to come here and tell you I just love Bell's the One. I think the pace is going to be hot. I think the way the post positions were set, I just have a really hard time betting against Serengeti Empress. JK will probably tell you Gamin's just a lot faster than everybody else in here. But Serengeti Empress is going to be on the lead. They basically have said we're going to ride as hard as it takes to be in first place going in, with a half mile left. I think Gamin drawing the 2 takes away some of the tactical advantage that she might have. And Serengeti Empress, while you'd say, hey, she's going to absolutely fly early, her last 2 races, she's went 21 and change and 43 and change. She won a grade 1 at Saratoga, and she got the nose in a grade 1 at Churchill, and she actually rebroke and galloped out way ahead of Bell's the One. So I don't love 3-1 in a race like this, and I will use Bell's the One, but I just have a hard time getting past Serengeti Empress. She's incredibly game, and she's proven that this 7 furlong distance, she just runs them off their feet.
So I like Speech, and I'll tell you why in a second, but I'm going to tell you a quick story because it's funny. After Serengeti Empress won the Kentucky Oaks, I was driving back to Lexington in a party bus with a friend of mine, Craig Bernick. And I told Craig that he bet Serengeti Empress. And I said, she's never going to win another grade 1. And he said, how much do you want to bet? And I said, $8,000. And I'm not really sure why I did that, because I didn't really have $8,000 to throw around like that. But I think I drank a lot that day, so I think that had a lot to do with it. And I dodged her winning a grade 1 for a long time. She just kept missing and missing and missing and missing. And then fast forward to me becoming really good friends with her trainer, Tom Amos, because we worked on the Fox show together. And so every time she ran, I was rooting for her to lose, but I was friends with Tom. And so he was on my podcast one day, and I confessed it to him, so that it made me feel a lot better. And then she won, and so I had to pay, and it's been awful. She's a freak. She's really fast. I think Gamin doesn't have a choice but to go as well. I think Serengeti Empress will absolutely go. Venetian Harbor has a little bit of speed. Our friend Tom Savitas here, who owns Venetian Harbor, I think she's going to be involved early, if not at least close. I'm looking for someone to pick up the pieces in this race. This race has produced some pretty crazy prices. Bar of Gold, I'm going to forget the Cassie filly's name that won at Churchill, and it just falls apart. Irad actually, there you go. I think Speech, if she gets the right trip, can get the job done. She's got to take back from the inside, make that one run if they run in front of her. But I have no problem Serengeti Empress being the speed of the speed in this race. Those are the 2 I like the most, but my pick will be Speech.
My pick is Gamin first, mostly because speaking about the differences between the 1-turn mile and then, 1-turn races, 2-turn races, Gamin is undefeated at 1-turn races. Her only loss came last time when she was going a mile underneath at Churchill Downs. So we figured out what she wants to do, and it's just to round 1 turn. So getting her back to what she's best at is going to be really important for her. She's got the speed. She's obviously very, very quick. So she has to be included, in my opinion. The second horse I use is Bell's the One. I kind of went through her form a little bit and gave her some excuses, which is something I like to do handicapping, figuring out, all right, well, where were her best races? And if you take out when they ran her on the turf, when she came back from a little bit of a layoff in a grade 1 and had to ship out to California, and you take out the 2 route races that she was in, she's only finished first, second, or third when sprinting in some very high levels against some nice horses. So I think her form is actually a little bit better than what it appears first out, and at 6-1, she's a good price for you. I like Venetian Harbor in this spot as well with the experience at Keeneland. She is a horse, same thing. They tried to have her go a little bit longer. She still ran really well. She has stamina. She finished second in those longer races, so you know that she's going to be able to keep up with the best of them. And horses they're not machines. They get tired sometimes. This is a horse that had a very grueling campaign. She was running outside of, say, her comfort zone, going longer distances at some really tough levels. They gave her a little bit of time, I thought, between August to October. She came back and ran excellently in the Raven Run. She finished first by a neck, so it was a really, really tight race. I know, certainly exciting for those connections. And I think she's going to even get better from that. So her sprint form, I think, think is fantastic, and she absolutely deserved to be in the conversation because I think she's just coming into her own to her very best. So I'm going to use 2, 9, 7, and 6, the 7 being Serengeti Empress as well, who you can't throw out with all that form, and I think Tom Amis would yell at me as well.
All right, the next race is the turf sprint. We talked a little bit about just turf sprints in general with the juvenile turf sprint. I'm not going to get too into it because I would spread a little bit in this race. But the horse I like at a price is the outside horse, Extravagant Kid. He's 14 to 1. Leinster, I think, is going to be favorite. And he got beat a half length by Leinster last time. Leinster might be 3 to 1, 7 to 2. This horse is going to be 15 to 1, could float up. He's in good form. I like last time that he showed a little bit more speed. He's a horse that's dropped way out of it in a bunch of his races, but he was a little bit more aggressively ridden last time. I like that. I think you never like losing a jockey, but Risplay's been riding the grass really good. He actually came to Kentucky and won a couple of stakes. So just to keep it moving, I'd go Extravagant Kid at a price.
Yeah, I think there's two kind of speed types I like in here, but I'm going to pick a closer, which is kind of against my religion. But I think Imprimis and Leinster are the ones you want as the forward types. Imprimis, fun story. You look at the race where he got disqualified in the Troy. I was at Saratoga. No one else was there, obviously, and I was walking from Shake Shack to the set, and the horses were coming by on the path, and Jose Ortiz was walking by on Imprimis, and he looked at me and he said, "Did you bet me?" And I go, "No." And he looked back and he winked at me. And then the horse won. He got disqualified, but he won impressively. So I've been keeping an eye on Imprimis. Imprimis, I think, is interesting. Leinster's interesting. I think Alexandra is a freak.
Yeah.
She's going to come rolling late. It's going to be a little bit desperate. I hate taking closers in turf sprints. But like I said, you got to zig and zag a little bit, and I'm okay zagging in this spot. She won one of the only – there's only 3 grade 1s, I believe, turf sprints in North America. One's at the Highlander at Woodbine, the Jaipur at Belmont, and then this race, the Breeders' Cup turf sprint. So I think Alexandra will come rolling in this race, and hopefully she doesn't get any trouble.
I agree with Jonathan there about Alexandra. This is a horse that's she's also runs very well fresh. She's certainly been okay running consistently as well, but in her prior form, rather, when she's come off a layoff, she's run some very, very good numbers. She's faced the boys before. This is an open group, so there are some females against the males, and I think she's talented enough to do it. She seems like one of those, if you look, and granted this is the Breeders' Cup, but if you look at what prices she's gone at, I feel like she's been a little bit forgotten about at this point in the year. She's typically a horse that you see at 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1, and that's in some very, very nice spots, some graded stakes races. So at a 12 to 1 price, I thought she was just absolutely much too high there to leave out. So I'm going to use her as well. This was one of the races, at least when I was building my ticket, that I thought you could spread in and give yourself the opportunity to find a price. I also like Imprimis and Leinster, however it is that we're saying it. And there are some solid horses in here that deserve to be in the conversation, like Got Stormy, another mare who seems to be so adjustable. She loves to sprint, at least recently. The one concern with her is that she was so talented going longer distances, last year and before that. Now you wonder, has she just kind of lost a step? Her form has changed to the sprint races instead. So I'm wondering if she's up to snuff with these types when we're talking about the faster fractions going a shorter distance. So I include her because I still do think she's very talented. Mark Casse is talented. The fact that she's able to kind of sit pretty much anywhere, I think is important. She's very adjustable and rateable. So, and Tyler Gaffalione just knows this mare so well. He truly loves her, gets along with her, and I think that's important because she can be, sometimes chestnut mares, chestnut fillies can be a little bit tough, but he certainly knows this one well. So I'm going to include Got Stormy.
And so what I would do is I would take like an opposite opinion and say exactly what Megan said is this filly was awesome last year. She won a couple of grade 1s at a mile, one against boys. They've cut her back because she just wasn't good enough anymore at a mile. And what I would say is if I think there's going to be a closer, I think there are other horses like Extravagant Kid or like I'll use Alexandra who are just better closers than her. And then if I want speed horse, I would just say Imprimis and Leinster are better middle of the pack or speed horses. So to me, I hope Got Stormy takes a ton of money because to me, I can't imagine a scenario like everything has to break right because if it falls apart, Alexandra or Extravagant Kid or somebody else to me just has a bigger kick. And if it doesn't fall apart, I think like Imprimis would be my second choice in there. So that's what makes it great, is that you bet against each other. You're not betting against Keeneland or the Breeders' Cup, so different opinions make for bigger prices. When we get to the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, again, I'll go quick. The horse I like in here is Sharp Samurai. He's only run once on the dirt. He ran second in the Pacific Classic. It was a small field. Maximum Security got completely loose on the lead that day. But I think it's interesting. He picked up Irad Ortiz. His only dirt start, he ran a 103 buyer. I do think there are a couple horses that could be freaks, including Knicks Go and Complexity. And if those horses can repeat back-to-back performances, they're probably pretty tough. But Knicks Go, I think 7-2. Sharp Samurai is 15-1. So be a horse I'd be very interested in playing on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add there. Like I said, I'm a speed figure guy, and Knicks Go last 2 starts since switching to Brad Cox, just been fast, and there's really no getting around that. The horse is just fast. If he runs the race he ran at Keeneland last time, he'll win by 6. Complexity is another horse. It showed a lot of talent as a 2-year-old, ran in the juvenile and got beat that day by Game Winner. But Complexity's had issues with his feet, and that's why he's kind of been start and stop. But his 4-go race I thought was impressive, and when it was rain, I mean, it was raining that day when Win came from Lake George to win that race, and then he came back in the Kelso and ran extremely well there. I just think Complexity is a talented horse as well, and to be honest, I'm going to be playing in the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, and I think a lot of my play, there's probably going to be an all-in play where I just need Complexity or Knicks Go to win, based on maybe playing some doubles into that race or doubles out of the race. I think those 2 horses have to win this race.
I'm on Knicks Go there after moving over to trainer Brad Cox. Ben Colebrook, a very, very good conditioner as well, but I think we still work. But the fact that Knicks Go has just seemed to have found some form, some new form for him. I mean, he's run his best numbers, his best starts have been with trainer Brad Cox, who's obviously very, very talented. His numbers have improved significantly. I don't know what the difference has been for him, whether it's a different style of training, different equipment, but Knicks Go, in my opinion, has kind of been the buzz horse too. You talk about watching workouts, watching horses at the track, talking to clockers and various people, and he's been that horse that everybody's like, have you seen Knicks Go? So looking at him physically, I think he's sitting on a really big race, but he's obviously going to take a big step up here from the allowance races that he's been in. This is a race that I spread in a little bit. I think you have to use Owendale. Talking about trips and race replays, which we'll definitely bring up in the Classic, in my opinion, with Maximum Security, who I thought got a terrible ride last time. But Owendale is a horse who was put quite a bit closer to the lead than he's more comfortable with. I think he's one that actually does better when he saves ground. But last time out, he was sent straight to the front. He didn't even break from the rail. He was breaking more towards the outside. And I just think, although Johnny is a talented Hall of Fame rider, Johnny Velasquez, he used too much of his horse early on there. So the fact that we're getting back to Florent Giroux, who seems to get along very, very well with this horse, he's got to win it here at Keeneland already. I think taking him back off the pace again, which you have to think he will do, 1, because he's done that before, and 2, because he draws towards the outside, he's likely going to be back in his comfort zone. So I think he's definitely one to look at in there. And then I use some of the same horses, Complexity, that were spoken about before, and the 9-horse Mr. Freeze, who I'm kind of playing reluctantly because he's burned me so many times. So I can't decide if I'm going to give him another chance or break up with him. But at 6-1 and with some good form there for Dale Romans and Manny Franco, I'm considering using him as well.
All right, the next race on the card will be the first Medallion runner of the weekend. We have Lady Prancelot, filly mare turf. I think we're basically taking a swing in here. There's a bunch of guys that own small pieces, so it didn't cost us very much to run. But she's a filly. She's 1-for-1 at Keeneland, and she's going to be coming from, I don't want to say way out of it because I don't think she has to be dead last, but she's going to be coming from the back. She's been pretty victimized by her pace in California. She's run 3 straight races. There's been very little early pace, but she's a long shot. She deserves to be a long shot. I don't want to tell you we're going to go out there and bet every penny we have on her to win because I think that'd be crazy. But we're hoping that she runs well and there's some pace to run at, and she can get up and run 3rd or 4th would be a success for us. So with that said, I think you kind of look at this race 2 ways. There doesn't look like there's a ton of speed I think Mean Mary's going to go to the front. Rushing Fall is going to sit just off of her. And Rushing Fall is a horse that loves Keeneland. She's 5 for 6 lifetime. But the big question is, does she want to go a mile 3/16, or is she as good at a mile 3/16 as she is at a mile and 1/8, mile and 1/16, or even a mile? And I think Mean Mary, the longer, the better for her, and she could get the right trip. I thought about picking Mean Mary, but I don't really love 7-2. Jonathan, could say sometimes that, whatever the most likely winner is, that's the right price. To me, I'm pretty interested with Terabellum. She's 20-1. Mm-hmm. She's coming over from Europe. She ran second in what is one of the biggest mile races in Europe against Circus Maximus earlier in the year. Her last, she came back. She ran second, got beat ahead in there. She came back and ran third in the Falmouth. And she came back last time at Newmarket, and if you look right on the left, it says HY, means heavy. And basically, if it's heavy turf in Europe, it means like they would have canceled the races in Kentucky because they never would run. And to me, you could just make a case and say, hey, she came off of a layoff there. She didn't like the ground. If she's 8-1, I don't know that I'd be telling you to bet her, but at 20-1, I think she's a horse that on her day is good enough to win. And she's just going to have to get the right trip, Mean Mary and Rushing Fall to come back a little bit.
Yeah, I think Terabellum's going to come down from 20-1. I've talked to people that are smarter than me when it comes to the math of the race, and I think she might be single digits in this spot. So don't be shocked when you see that on Saturday. I think that Philip made all the cases for her. She's one that I'd want to use. Mean Mary, I think speed on the turf is just dangerous in general. So I think she's a game mare, and I think she'll be hard to get past. And I also want to agree with Philip about Lady Prancelot. I get it. He's got the Medallion shirt on, but he's not telling you a lie. She really has run into slow paces in her last 3 races, and it's hard for horses to close into those paces because the horses on the front end still have a lot of energy. And yes, she's a little bit outclassed to a certain extent in this spot with some of the horses that are coming over here, but for her to get involved late, maybe to run 4th or 3rd or even 2nd, I don't think is outside the realm of possibility. I'm a huge Rushing Fall fan. She hasn't gone this far before, but distance is very similar to this, 9 furlongs. Within a 1/16 of a mile and 3/16, she's done well. So I'm not really concerned about that. She's tactical, but she still finishes like a Chad Brown horse. Philip mentioned that she's 5 for 6 at Keeneland, so she obviously loves the ground, loves the surface, loves the big trees in the paddock, whatever it might be. She enjoys that. But she's also pretty special in that she won a Grade 1 at 2, 3, 4, and 5 years old. I think this is like the last thing she needs to be considered a great racehorse, and I'm hoping that she gets the job done. She's a favorite of mine.
She's a tailor-made sales grad. Duncan's here, so we'll throw that out. We sold her as a yearling at Saratoga, so it's probably that good start that kicked her off to all those Grade 1 wins.
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah. I use many of the same horses. I have Rushing Fall, Mean Mary. I also have Terabellum as my second choice. I just thought that was a fantastic ad with some international form, and 20-1 was way too juicy to pass up. So agree with you guys there. I put Sister Charlie in this spot as well. I don't know how you feel about that, JK, but she's just been one. Again, you can kind of go through and class. I have a podcast called The Horse Racing Happy Hour that you can find on any of your platforms. We record on Thursdays and new episodes drop then. And something we always say in the podcast when we're handicapping is class gone class. And that's exactly what's happening with this mare. I mean, she's had so many great races at a variety of distances as well. I mean, Grade 1 after Grade 1 after Grade 1. She is one that 3 races back, she went a mile and a mile and a quarter, which I thought was a very grueling race for her. She still finished a nice 3rd after shipping out to Santa Anita. So if you're looking for a horse to come from off the pace, I think you go there at 6-1 for Chad Brown and Johnny V. And the other long shot that I will give you that's a little bit off the wall here is I was so impressed by how Harvey's Little Goyle ran at Keeneland. I was there that day, and it just seemed like such an easy effort for her. We've seen time after time, it seems like now, with the progeny of American Pharoah, who also started off at a TaylorMade, if I'm not mistaken there. He's gotten some very, very good turf horses, and she is the same way. Running on the grass since they've switched her over in June of this year, she's either finished just first or a very, very close second, and that's been at all of the Kentucky tracks. Her only second place was at Kentucky Downs, which can be a little bit of an interesting race meet there, and at Keeneland and Churchill, she's done very, very well. So she's won half of her races this year. She's younger than some of the others in this spot, so you have to think, is she up to the task with it? But you get Bill Mott, Hall of Fame trainer. She's won a Grade 1, and at 20-1, she comes in at a very, very big price there.
And then one fun thing, just if you're sitting on the couch with your grandmother or your mom and you want to like get them involved, Sister Charlie and my sister Nat are sisters. They're half sisters, so if you weren't aware of that, it's pretty cool to see a 6-year-old mare and a 5-year-old mare in the same Grade 1 race. They do have the same mother, so I think that's pretty cool.
And their younger brother just won the Arc de Triomphe, who's 4, which is the biggest race in France. So yeah, it's obviously a great family. The next race is the Sprint. This race had a big scratch earlier today. The favorite Vacoma was scratched due to a fever. This is a race I don't really have a strong opinion on. I think it's a pretty weak version of the race. I think if you look at a horse like Frank's Rocket, who's a 3-year-old filly, normally you would say, why would a 3-year-old filly ever run in the Sprint against older males? But it's just a weak version. The way I try to handicap just in general is it's all about trying to find the winner, because even if the winner you think is 5-2 or 2-1, and then I try to find horses that I can get in some sort of exacta or something else to try and create value. And for me, a horse I'm going to try to use is going to be Whitmore. In 4 starts at Keeneland, he's had 1 win, 2 seconds. Last time, I think at Keeneland, it was tough to close a bunch of ground. He got pretty far back, but I do think there's a scenario in here where the pace could be pretty hot. And on his day, he's better than basically every horse in the race. Now, he's 7 years old. Maybe his best day is long gone, I think. But it's Toby Keith. Maybe it's he's not as good always, but he's good one time. And his best race is just better than everybody else's.
Yeah, I loved Vacoma, and here I love the outside draw. So I'll just be quick for this race. I think CZ Rocket, what he's done since being switched to Peter Miller's barn, is pretty impressive. I think that West Coast dirt form transfers, pretty strongly over to the East Coast. And Peter Miller can win a sprint race in the Breeders' Cup. He won the turf sprint 3 times, and he won the sprint twice with Roy H. And he's done that all in like the last 6 years. So. He can obviously get the job done. Whitmore is a warrior. Firenze Fire. Here's what I'll say. It could be smart. Ask me on Saturday. My smart opinion of the week. He doesn't need Belmont. People think that he needs Belmont, and obviously him leaving the Jason Service barn, there's been a lot of attention about how he was going to run. He's run well for Kelly Breen, and in fact, one of his best races, I thought, was the race when he got beat by Volatile at Saratoga. It was the slow pace. He couldn't make up any ground. I think Firenze Fire is a little bit sneaky. I don't trust Yalpon, and that's it. This is a tough race.
I'm right there with you guys for CZ Rocket, the 2-horse. I use the 6 Frank's Rocket as well, with a lot of speed, who's just been nearly perfect this year, 5 for 6 in 2020. The only off effort was a 2nd place finish. And then the other horse I use is Diamond Oops, who I kept going back and forth on for quite some time. This is just an unbelievable 5-year-old gelding who has been successful in longer races, he's won a Grade 1 going long on the turf. He finished a very good 2nd that day. But he's been long, short, turf, dirt. It just doesn't seem to matter for him. Last time out, he went off as a favorite, actually right there at Keeneland, going the 6 furlongs. He was 3rd start off the layoff. I think he was getting better. They brought him back on the turf after he went away for a little bit of a vacation, and it was a soft spot for him. He was able to get the win that day. And he just looked so good sitting off the pace. You thought that horse was beat in the stretch at Keeneland last time out if you go watch the replay. And he came from just absolutely nowhere. He kicked it into gear again. And something I love to see as someone that rides horses and has been around them for a while is how happily he did it. I mean, as soon as the rider asked him to go, if you watch that replay, you see his ears flick forward. And he was like, I got this, no problem. And he galloped out like that as well. So for a horse that I thought, well, one, is he fit enough? Is he going to be able to do this getting back to dirt, which can be harder on a horse than turf, and going those quick times at the sprint distance as well. I had a lot of doubts for him, but the way he won that race was more impressive to me than what the number itself was. So I include Diamond Oops at 8-1 with his physical form, the way he looked last time.
All right, so we're getting into the late pick four, so the last 4 races on Saturday. I think I have a really hard time getting a read on just what the betting is going to do in this race. I think the morning line could be way off. I think Kamiko could be less than 6-1. I think Siskin is definitely going to come down from 12-1. I like Digital Age. I don't know that I'm going to go crazy, but I think this horse has clearly had a lot of ability, and I think as a 3-year-old, they just started running him in longer distances just because those were the races that were available, like the big $1 million races were on 3/16, mile and a half. That's just too far. They've run 3 times this year. He's run big numbers in basically all 3, including last time in the Turf Classic. He is cutting back from 1 mile and 8 to a mile, and sometimes you're just not sure if he's quick enough. But he's just a horse I like. He's 8-1. I don't know that he's going to come down as much as some of the Euros. With that said, Kamiko, he won the English 2000 Guineas, which is the premier mile race for 3-year-old colts in England. And it was the fastest 2000 Guineas ever. And it was on firm ground. A lot of times in Europe, the ground's a lot softer, so you have to get a read on can they handle firm ground. Keeneland, they may say it's firm. It's going to be good ground. That Keeneland, there will be a little more ground. Those of you guys that live here, you know, if you walk out in your yard in October, it's never truly like July firm. But he's a horse that he's run very fast numbers. Like he ran a 1:27 time for him last time out. That would easily win this race if he can replicate that form. But I do think he's going to get bet. He also, his 2 best races have both been at Newmarket, which is kind of a weird track. It's a straight mile, and about a furlong and a half out, they go down in a little dip, and then the ground goes basically uphill to the finish, which if you've been to Keeneland, it's obviously flat the whole way around. So maybe he just really likes Newmarket. You get that a lot in Europe. A lot of horses really thrive on certain tracks. So can he replicate the same performance somewhere else, which is maybe not want to take a super short price, so I landed on Digital Age.
So yeah, I cheated off of my friend Nick Luck's test, and he gave me some good information about Siskin. A lot of times in this mile race, you have to determine with the Europeans, are they galloping milers where they just want to kind of they don't have that turn of foot, they just want to kind of keep going, more the stamina types, or are they the turn of foot milers? And I believe the turn of foot milers do well here, the galloping milers do not. And he identified Siskin as being that turn of foot miler. And he actually kind of, his voice kind of peaked, and it almost cracked a little bit when he said the turn of foot that Siskin had. And so that was a horse I thought was interesting to me that I wanted to be involved with. But you make a great case for Digital Age. I'll be honest, one of the things I've kind of hang my hat on with being a horse player is the information never stops coming. I might not have used Digital Age earlier in the day, but you made a case for him, and I'm picking up what you're putting down. Uni is a horse that I absolutely love, but I think she got a beautiful setup last time, and I just don't think she's the same horse that she was last year when she won the Breeders' Cup Mile out at Santa Anita, and the ground's going to be a little bit different as well. So I'm going to build a lot of what I'm doing around Siskin. I've heard some good stuff about One Master, another European, and most of the Americans in here don't really get me going. Halliday ran a beautiful race in the 4-Star Dave and should be involved in the pace, but I just don't think it's good enough in here. Ivar is another one that I thought was interesting, ran well last time. Last time was the time, exactly, at 14-1. So I'm going to lean from a majority of my play is going to be through the 4 and the 9, and then I'll have some savers on some of the other ones.
I think Chad Brown knows how to win this race, and he's going to do it here with either Uni or with the 14 Raging Bull. So with Uni, as Jonathan mentioned, just as a horse that maybe her form hasn't been exactly what we're used to for her. Last year, she went off as the favorite, I believe, or she was second choice, but to Got Stormy. But she's just been unbelievably impressive, and I think she came back off of a layoff from November, so she didn't race from November to June. And we see Chad Brown do this with his horses. He brings them back, kind of lets them get a race under their belt with some of these really, really talented ones. It was still a grade 1. She still finished third. In the 4-star Dave, it was not her best effort there. She was wide, but I still expected more. So that's the only race that I'm really holding against her this year. And then last time she won. So I feel like her preparation to this spot has been exactly what they wanted, probably a little bit of a better result 2 starts back. But she's a horse that I think is still one to consider, and the fact that she can sit up a little bit closer to the pace or much further back. So I'm going to use Uni in there, and then Raging Bull as well, who's definitely a hard closer and is going to need some pace to run at, so it's a little bit more dependent in that way. But again, Chad Brown certainly knows how to win this race. And the only other horse, speaking about information coming in, and Jonathan said we can make cases for horses or pickups on something that you missed in your first pass when handicapping. We talked about how much each one of us really liked Terabellum. Well, the horse that beat Terabellum is the one in here, Circus Maximus, at 12-1. And granted, this is a different race than what Terabellum was running in. But for Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore, this has been another one of those international buzz horses who's just kind of lacked a little form here recently in some of those very, very, very tough Grade 1 races, Group 1 races, pardon me, at Royal Ascot and Longchamp and Deauville. But this is still a 4-year-old colt, son of Galileo, who I think is going to be in contention here from the rail. And the fact that Aidan Bryan has brought this horse over to the U.S. before, he ran him not only at where was it? He ran him at Santa Anita. He came in the Breeders' Cup Mile. Yeah, exactly. So he thought enough of this horse that he brought him over last time. That was at Santa Anita. He still finished a very good effort, and that was a very quick pace. At California, we've got really hard ground. We've got oftentimes quicker horses that you deal with out there compared to maybe the East Coast with the New York track and also the tracks in Kentucky here. But I still think Circus Maximus at a price at 12-1 you could include.
He would be like the definition of the galloping miler that John was talking about. He's a horse in Europe. The way they run a lot of the races, they're much slower early, and then it's like a sprint to the finish. It's like everybody just plays cat and mouse, and it's like who's going to move first, and then somebody goes, and then it's just a dead sprint to the finish. And he's a horse that just kind of pushes go a lot earlier than a lot of other horses are comfortable with. And I would agree. I think in general that style does not work as well in the U.S. coming over. Like last year, I thought he had every right to do well, and he just couldn't quicken with those horses. Now, maybe Keeneland, a track that's a little softer, is going to be a little more taxing. It's not like the road at Santa Anita, so maybe that helps him. But with that, we get into the distaff. So this will be Medallion's second runner. This is definitely our better chance. Unfortunately, we have to run against Monomoy Girl, who is a Hall of Famer in the making. You don't see this too often. If you look at Monomoy Girl, who's the outside horse, she's had 14 lifetime starts. She's won 12, and she's run second twice. One of those seconds she actually won and was DQ'd. So in 13 of her 14 lifetime starts, she's hit the wire first. I think our filly is doing great. A big question mark for her was like basically 5 of her 6 wins were at Monmouth Park. But last time she ran big in the Beldame. It was a small field. It was a weirdly run race. You could make a lot of cases to say it's hard to get a good read on her after that. Just a little bit of the inside information, like at Churchill she didn't run as good, but Johnny V came back and said she just never got a real good hold of the track. She's a big galloping filly. We always felt like the 1 1/8 was going to help her. She's not a horse that really is going to quicken and just make some explosive moves. She's kind of a grinder. And so what I really liked last time was we had Junior Alvarado on. She broke really sharp, and he basically aggressively put her in the race, and then another horse wanted the lead, and he was able to rate her after that. But I expect we're going to be relatively forward. I do think there's a lot of horses that basically want the exact same trip in here. I think Lady Kate is a horse that's going to go to the lead. But if you look at like maybe Swiss Skydiver go to the lead, but I think if you look at like Horologist, Swiss Skydiver, maybe Valiance, Monomoy Girl, Harvest Moon, CC, there's a bunch of horses that are going to basically want to do the same thing. So I think it's going to be a matter of who gets the right kind of trip heading in there. But, what I think, there's 3 fillies that have run multiple 100-plus buyers since, like, June the 1st, and it's us, Monomoy Girl, and Swiss Skydiver. So it's not bad company to be in heading into a $2 million race.
So I've got oh shit, whoa, almost lost the mic. I got a couple of opinions here. Oh, almost lost it again, but we're back. Like we stole something. Okay, so Swiss Skydiver, I've never been a huge fan of. If she wins, I lose. I'll say that right now. Monomoy Girl will probably win. Like Philip said, she's a freak to win all those races. And a lot of those times, the horse that was behind her was Midnight Bisou, who's an absolute superstar. So it's not like she was just beating up on horses that weren't very good. But here, let me give you some price horses to use maybe underneath, or if you're not a believer in those, I think Horologist makes a ton of sense. I've been a fan of her since back in the day when she was with Richie Baltus, and I think she's an interesting horse and is trending in the right direction. Now she's going to need things to fall in her way, but she deserves to be in this race. CC is another one that I think is really talented down on the inside. I think Michael McCarthy does a phenomenal job. He doesn't get the headlines of a Bob Baffert, a Todd Pletcher, or a Chad Brown, but I think that Michael does an unbelievable job and is one of the guys. If I was sending a horse, I would send a horse to McCarthy. And the other one that I think is interesting is Ollie's Candy the 9. If you look at her races, her last race in the Spinster or whatever, the Clement L. Hirsch, yeah, the Ogden Phipps, cool. The Apple Blossom, to me, her performance in that race might have been the best distaff performance we've seen all year. The pace was unbelievably fast in that race. She stayed involved in that race and just lost barely to CC. I think Ollie's Candy is a sneaky horse that you don't want to forget about using underneath. If I was keying a horse underneath in trifectas and superfectas, she would be the one to do it, and I would not be shocked at all if she's getting her picture taken at 3:57 p.m. They don't post drag at Keeneland.
Very simple for me in this spot. I am going with Monomoy Girl for all the reasons that everyone said and that we already know.
All right, so into the late double, the second to last race is the Breeders' Cup Turf. This would be a race for me that, again, the favorite is going to be Magical. I'm not way against Magical, but to me, this is a race where I think you could get a couple of other horses at a better price. Two back in the Irish Champion, she beat a horse named Gaiath. Gaiath is the highest rated horse in the world this year. He was incredibly fast. And it felt to me like her Breeders' Cup was winning the Irish Champion, and that took something out of her. Last time the ground was really soft. She didn't run as good, but she's danced a lot of big dances. If you look down her page, every race on her past performance is a grade 1. Before some of those races was also like she ran second in the Breeders' Cup to Enable. But to me, at a very short price, I'd rather just go somewhere else. And I landed on Tarnawa, who's the 3. Also like her stablemate Mogul, and I was really split between the two, and I could see myself just taking whoever ends up being the biggest price. But Tarnawa's a filly. Her race 2 back on Firm, she absolutely quickened unbelievably well, and I think that's what it takes for American racing, is really being able to quicken. I think last time she didn't love the heavy ground, but she still got up to win. I also think she's probably better at 1.5 miles than 1.25 miles. And I'm hoping I get 6-1. I don't know that I'm going to I could see her coming down in odds, but she's a horse that just feels like she's getting really good right now. She's got the Firm win on her record that makes me think she could transition to the U.S. But like I said, I'd also be playing Mogul, the 10. He's a horse that feels like he's trending the right direction. They made a very similar move with the horse they thought a lot of. If you look at a lot of Mogul's early races, he was heavily bet in every race. He was 7-1 in the Derby after basically no showing in his prep, which just doesn't happen very often. But he won a grade 1 last time. He feels like he's also trending in the right direction. So I'd be focused on those two.
A lot of times in these races that have a lot of Europeans, I defer to, I defer to Nick Luck. I defer to the, one of my favorite things to do is like type these horses' names in and Google them and read their articles just to pick up on things. Oh, didn't like the ground, love the ground, didn't like this, we missed a week of training, whatever you can do. All signs for me point to Tarnawa, and that'll be a horse that I'll be building a lot of stuff around. Nick Luck actually mentioned on our podcast that he felt like this horse could have, it was at least a question. It's at least worth a conversation. This horse could have won the ARC that day on based on the performance they had that she had on the undercard. So that's good enough for me. If a horse can win the ARC, they can win the Breeders' Cup. turf, especially kind of a lighter edition of the Breeders' Cup turf than I think we've seen in the past. The American horse that I'm interested in, I'll be using Mogul as well, but the American horse that I'm interested in, I think deserves a conversation, is Channel Maker. You look at Channel Maker's last 2 races, and they were wire to wire. One of my favorite things about our Fox broadcast is some of the interviews that Maggie can get after, or Acacia can get, to kind of hear these owners and trainers kind of share some insight about things. And I'll never forget, after this horse won the Sword Dancer, Maggie was on horseback and asked Manny, and he said, we've been trying to get this horse to the lead. It's just been unfortunate we haven't been able to do it. The last 2 starts the horse has won. I think the horse likes a little bit of cut in the ground, and will get that cut in the ground here at Keeneland. And I look, I'm not going to be cutting in line to bet on Channel Maker, but I do believe that Channel Maker is worth inclusion if you're doing some spready type things in your picks, and definitely a horse you want to try to use underneath if you're playing trifectas and superfectas.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there on Channel Maker. I just think his form recently, and especially, this is just one of those specialist types. He loves a mile and a half. That's exactly what he needs, and his past 2 races have shown you that. And the fact that he has been able to change his form up and lead the pack, I think, has been important for him. So I include Channel Maker. A note on the horse that we all seem to like, the 3, Tarnawa. Speaking to some of the international connections, I believe Christophe Soumillon is in specifically to ride this horse. He's got one, I think that's on the AE, maybe somewhere else, but this is the horse he came over to ride, and that's one of the top riders internationally. So the fact that he sticks with this filly, he obviously has ridden her twice, and that's into a win. She's been undefeated in 2020, so I agree. I don't think we'll see anywhere near the 6-1 morning line price, unfortunately, but for an international horse that, you know, we don't have much form to go off of, at least here in the U.S., I think that you can definitely place a confident wager on the 3 horse here. I also, one that I didn't use, you guys didn't use, my top pick is the 7 United for Richard Mandela. I think this horse has been sneaky good out in California. I spent 5 years out at Santa Anita, and this is a very talented gelding. He's also one of those specialist types. He needs the 1.25 miles, 1.5 miles. The longer the better for him. Although he's never technically won at this distance, he's had some very close, very good second place efforts, and it's actually been one of the best career numbers that he's ever run at the 1.5 miles. He finished second by a head in last year's Breeders' Cup Turf, and that was to Brixton Mortar, who was your eventual horse of the year. So I know that was last year. We're talking about 2019. But in 2020, he's had 4 wins out of 5 starts, and his only off effort was a second place. So he has been kind of nearly perfect. It's been out in California, which maybe you can knock and say, do you get as competitive turf fields as you do maybe on the East Coast in New York or here in Kentucky? But I still think United has a shot to win in here, and he's a horse that is also pretty adjustable. He's gone to the lead before. We've seen him sit the trip. Flavien Prat gets leading rider after a leading rider title in California, and he comes in and has a very good relationship with this horse. So I'm going to use United at 8-1 on top, and then follow up with the others that you guys mentioned.
Here would be a good head-to-head. Do you think it's Channel Maker or United head-to-head?
I got money in my pocket.
Yeah, that's right. I would be with Channel Maker. I think
I don't trust California horses in the turf.
Outside of California. I think in California it's a different track. I think last year he ran a great race, got the perfect trip. But to me, I don't see anybody that's going to go to the lead over Channel Maker. I think he could just trip out. I don't know if United could pass him on a different course. All right, we'll get to the Classic next. This is the big one, the $6 million one. I wish I could tell you I was going to get super creative. I think Improbable is the most likely winner of the race. I think he's the most tactical. I think the really interesting thing to me is what do you do with Maximum Security, right? Baffert trains both Authentic, the Derby winner, and Maximum Security, the horse that finished first in the Derby 2 years ago. And Maximum Security's best races are when he's on the lead, there's no question. And I think he's just a grinder. I think he likes being in a fight. He's not a horse that just is going to quicken up. He doesn't want to pass horses. I think Authentic is the same. Authentic really probably doesn't want to pass horses. He wants to get on the lead. But because they're both trained by the same guy, does Authentic just go and then Maximum Security sits off, which I think is a negative for him. But I just think Improbable is the best horse in the race, and he's going to likely get what could be the best trip. I think he's versatile enough. The horse I would be trying to get, and maybe it's just dealing with Bill Mott with a horologist. I could be the #1 fan of in the Tacitus fan club. I've lost more money on this horse than any horse in my entire life, which makes me embarrassed to say that. Luckily, I got off him when he started being a super short price in all his races. I quit betting him. But in this race, he's not going to be a short price. They've said they want to take him back. I think he's going to get – JK's talked about the pocket trip before, but I think he's going to get a little bit of pace to run at, which maybe helps him at 1.25 miles. And he's a horse, while I don't know if his best is good enough, he has run some pretty good races behind some good horses. He definitely does not like to win, but he's a horse at 20-1 I could certainly see, running bigger than expected and getting second or third.
I'm going to speed round you here with every horse. Look, I like Tacitus. I've always liked Tacitus, but I signed divorce papers a couple of races back with Tacitus. Sure.
It deserves one more chance.
Yeah, that's what she said. Tis the Law is another horse that I think that there's been some conversation about him not liking the inside. And look, I get he drew the 2, but there's a very legitimate possibility that he can get off of the inside. He can break away from. There's a long run to the first turn. Tis the Law has the talent to do well. I don't necessarily trust him, but Manny Franco said after the race he didn't like the track at Churchill, and maybe Manny was making an excuse. But I think there's maybe something to that. Tis the Law has definitely been the most impressive 3-year-old. By my standards, a horse I've always thought was really good. I think this horse has never gone this far before, and that could be the thing that really wakes him up, or it could be the thing that smacks him right in the face. But I think at a price, he's worth inclusion. My pick is Tom's d'Etat. You heard Philip say that Improbable's been the most consistent horse. Tom's d'Etat's performance in the Whitney, when he completely missed the break, and Improbable got loose on the lead, and Tom's d'Etat came running at him, that performance is why Tom's d'Etat will be my top choice in here. He's running off a long layoff, but he's 9 for 12 off a layoff. So Al Stall, Tom's d'Etat, they've got it all figured out. I think he'll be fine. Title ready. Don't fall for that Dallas Stewart nonsense. He's not going to run in the money here. I like Dallas Stewart too. I'm just saying don't fall for it here. Save it for next May. Higher Power's not that good. Global Campaign is a cut below from a pace standpoint. You have to deal with some of these real horses. Improbable is the most consistent, is the most likely winner, the one that I trust the most. He can wire you, but he can also come from out of it. But because I like Improbable so much, I have to like Tom's d'Etat more. Authentic is a stereotypical game-on dude type where the slower he goes, the worse off he's going to be. You get him on the lead going 49 and change, he's going to get run by. You get him on the lead going 46, he's going to open up by 7. He needs to go faster, and we ran into Bob Baffert the other night at Jeff Ruby, and he essentially guaranteed this horse is going to be on the lead. He didn't really guarantee that, but he was angry about Johnny not going on the lead last time, so I'm assuming that's what is going to happen. Maximum Security, I don't trust. The horse has not been the same since he's been with Jason Service. He's run well, but here are the horses Maximum Security has been beating in California. And let me know if you know if who these are. Midcourt, Take the 101, some horse that I scribbled his name. I don't even know what it is. He's just not. He hasn't beat anyone this year. And yes, he is a fighter. And Bob Baffert will tell you he's like a boxer. He's just not going to get knocked out. But he's going to probably get knocked out on Saturday. I just think that he hasn't gotten to the level this year that he once was. And I think we're thinking about the old Maximum Security.
That could certainly be true, and I hope not. I like Maximum Security in here, but I agree with JK that I think that you could make a case for a number of horses. I'm the same. I've loved By My Standards for a long time. I question the distance for him as well. The fact that he's mentally developed, I think. He over-raced a lot earlier on in his career, and now he's been a bit more adjustable, a bit more rateable. I think Maximum Security last time had a terrible race. I mean, I agree with JK. I don't think that the Grade 1 Pacific Classic and the Grade 2 San Diego Handicap were actually Grade 1 and Grade 2 races. I think they were Grade 3 races with the company. But I think last time he just ran on. He was a fighter. He did grind despite being asked to run all out at the half-mile pull. So it was an extended effort for him. I think you kind of toss that race and hope he gets a better trip this time. You know, Bob Baffert was on the record saying the horse was only 80% when he came back and won the San Diego, which, he won by a nose that day, so he should have only been 80% because who is midcourt, So I like Maximum Security in here. And the other horse I think that we all have to mention and have many times is Tis the Law. Going into this year's Kentucky Derby with it being in September instead of in May, the Derby year after year is the first time that these horses will run 1.25 miles. And then they don't do it again until they get to, the Breeders' Cup Classic. But Tis the Law had already run that 1.25 mile distance when he ran in the Travers. It's a grueling campaign for him to be in so many Grade 1 races. He has just won time after time as well. He runs back-to-back 1.25 mile efforts. Now they've given him a chance to breathe. He's been able to rest a little bit. He hasn't run since the Kentucky Derby, and I think he's coming back in top form. So I think we've asked a lot of that horse, and as just a 3-year-old colt, he's been able to handle a lot. But I think this is the right amount of rest for him to come back and be on top of his game, and his speed numbers that he has run puts him in the pretty much on top of any horse in this spot. So I'm right there with you, and I think Tis the Law could be there. But I don't know. This is a really interesting Breeders' Cup Classic. Early on in the year, I wasn't as excited about it, but as we've gotten closer to the race, I think it's one of the best we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I think COVID had you could ever say it had a positive impact. It definitely had a positive impact on the field this year. You didn't have horses going to Dubai. Everybody kind of stayed here, and it just made it, a lot of horses got a break early on, and for the most part, all the big shooters are still around, and that doesn't happen a lot in this division. A lot of times horses, 3-year-olds, they kind of, they go after the Triple Crown trail pretty hard, and there's just a lot of attrition that happens because it got spread out. You have the Derby winner, you've got the best 3-year-old from the first half of the year, and Tis the Law. So, yeah, I definitely think it's a good addition. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk quickly about betting syndicate. I'm going to let JK talk a little bit about ticket structure and kind of the thought process behind some of that. And then what we'll do is we'll take questions after that. I appreciate everybody bearing with us with the technical problem to get a little bit of a late start. But the way the betting syndicate will work for all you guys that signed up with Sam earlier, we had a bunch of money pre-raised before that. So what we're going to do is I will either text or email everybody the picks before the race. So whatever information you gave Sam, either your phone number or an email, you'll get just a quick blast like 15 minutes before. JK and I'll have to talk just on how quick he wants to give me the bets. But I'll bet everything. You'll get it so you have it in advance of the race. The way it'll work is JK's going to take probably half the money, I think, depending on how much we have. He's going to focus on the bigger kind of home run swings. He can tell you a little bit about hitting the pick 6 last year, but going after the pick 5, pick 6, I'm going to take some of the money and focus more on singles, just to give some guys some more action. The last thing we want to do is we bet a pick 6, and if we don't hit it, we get knocked out, and then we're tied up. So I know a lot of you guys will be watching every race. So that's the way the syndicate itself is going to work. But I'll let him talk about ticket structure and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the things I always try to do when I have these opportunities to talk to people that love horse racing is it's so much less about picking the horses and how you bet them. So I encourage you to take more time to create your wagers. I think what a lot of people do is they'll spend 2 hours listening to us jack wagons talking about the picks, and they'll go home tonight, they'll work some more, they'll look in the morning, they'll look on Friday, they'll look on Saturday, and then as they're loading up their ADW or walking to the window, they make their wager. And I encourage you to spend more time on the wagering part than you do on listening to us or looking at the races. I really, truly believe that. If you're betting a race and you submit one ticket, you're wrong. You're not taking advantage of the opportunity that you have to take the information and utilize it the best as possible. And so I'm completely against caveman pick 5, pick 6s, one ticket. I don't do that. So what I will do for this group, and what I did last year, the same thing I did is whatever the dollar amount that we're starting with, whether it's 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, whatever it is, I will create the ticket as if that doesn't matter. I will create the ticket. I will have single A horses. I'll use B horses, C horses. So there'll be different levels of tickets. The tickets that you're going to get sent, there's probably going to be 18 tickets. There'll be a $10 pick 6 the way that we hope that it comes, where it's singling Golden Pal. Actually, we're not playing the pick 6 on Friday, but singling Serengeti, Monomoy Girl, Serengeti Empress, something like that. Singling those most likely horses, but then using other horses in that second level, that B level, that we'll maybe have for $5 or $4 or whatever it might be. And last year, that's exactly what we did. We missed our All A run, which is our All A horses. We missed. I think we had it for $5 and we missed, and we ended up hitting the pick 6 for $2, and it paid I think $110,000. And we were there on track. And the fun part about it is Dominic was involved as well. Jake was at home because he didn't want to hang out with us. But we weren't going to play it. And I said, guys, it's kind of an expensive run. I'm not going to really play it. And then Dominic, I'll put in. And our friend Rashard Lewis, who played in the NBA for a few years, said, I'll take half. And I said, all right, let's do it. So we bet it. We spent $3,000 and we got back $110. And I went to Vegas the next day. I Ubered from LA to Vegas to make the story even better. So that's what we'll do. So keep in mind, it might be a little bit more for you to digest than what you're hoping for. It's not going to be a very simple, straightforward. You're not going to be able to look at it. You're going to have to kind of pay attention. But there will be different tickets, and that's the way we'll play it. So we'll try to hit it for $10, $15, and if we can, we'll do it that way. And if not, we'll if some of the longer shot horses and the horses we maybe didn't like but we're saving and protecting with, we'll play it that way. So I encourage you to do that. Stop exacta boxing, please. Stop trifecta boxing, please. Look at doing wheels. Look at wheeling your horses. If you like a horse, make sure you put that horse on top with the horses that you think can run second, and then flip it around with the horses that you think could win and your horse to run second. Don't ever bet win, play, show. Please stop doing that. Actually, you can keep doing it because it actually helps me out, but I encourage you to learn more. There's a book called Exotic Betting by Steve Christ. Exotic Betting by Steve Christ. It might be out of circulation, but I do know someone who has a PDF of it. So if you email someone to get the PDF, I can maybe find out if they'll send it to you. Don't tell Steve Christ that. But it's a book that it taught me so much about betting this game better. It's so much more about that than it is about picking horses. So as far as the syndicate goes, the portion that's given to me to kind of pick what we're going to do, we'll play the pick 5 on Friday. And we'll be pretty aggressive. We'll kind of swing for the fences there a little bit. Maybe singling a horse like Golden Pal. I won't spend too much money on horses outside of that and see where we can land. And then on Saturday, when that dollar pick 6 rolls around, maybe we're fortunate enough to have a carryover like we did last year from Friday to Saturday, and we'll swing for the fences on Saturday and try to pick up a couple $100,000.
That'd be nice.
And that's exactly right. You hear a lot of people, and they're like, I'm a good handicapper, but a terrible gambler, a terrible bettor. And the great thing about horse racing, the best part is, like, if you bet sports, you have to be right 55%, or else you're going to lose if you're betting the same amount of units. If you bet horse racing, you could be right 1 out of 10 times, but you just got to make that one time count because of odds and everything else. So it's, for JK, it's like, hey, you turn 3,000 to 110. You can have a lot of $3,000 losses before you need to cash again to be, be neutral. So that's what makes the sport so amazing, and that's what makes the opportunity so amazing. I remember we were at the Derby a couple years ago, and some lady just random picked Funny Duck and hit a pick 5 for like $850,000 on an $8 ticket, and that's what makes it so fun.
One quick story. I was going to Churchill one time for Derby, and we were drunk the night before, so we were late, and you guys have all been to the Derby. We went to the other side and had to walk through the infield to get to the civilized side, and my friends were walking slow, and I'm trying to hurry because I wanted to bet this horse named Avisadero. And I wanted to bet him in a pick 3, and so I'm trying to get through all this traffic, and I get through, and I I finally get over to the other side by the gift shop, and I walk up to a window, and as you guys know, at Derby, these people, they're not ticket writers all the time, they're just there to help for Derby Day. And so I said, can I get a $300 pick 3? It was ice cold, 1 with 8 with 4. It was 6 with 11 with 4. And she goes, what? And I said, just hit it. And I looked back, and they were breaking from the gate. And I came back and the ticket came out. $42,000.
Oh man.
I went back. I tipped her $300.
But they promise with the betting club that that won't happen. Your tickets will be in on time, and you'll have
Oh yeah.
way in advance.
I'll have everything the morning of. Just want to check on scratches. Sometimes scratches can change things. I'm also a big, I want to hear things. I want to know things. I knew Vacoma was scratching this morning 3 days ago, so I want to be able to make sure I make good decisions.
Yeah, I think too. Obviously, with Saturday, you're gonna have the chance. It's a weird meet. Normally, the Breeders' Cup, you always have like there's Thursday races. You can get a feel for the track. You got Friday races, Saturday races. Obviously, Keeneland ran a couple weeks ago, but yeah, you get to see how the track plays. Is it? Sometimes they'll soup them up for the big days, and it can play fast and everything else. With that, does anybody have any questions about anything we covered tonight, or whether it's Medallion focus, Breeders' Cup focus, more good stories from JK? I'll let Mark, and then before anybody goes, we're going to do a quick drawing. We got 5. We're going to do 5 $100 entries into the betting syndicate. So if everybody that's here, you got your name put in. MT, you can go ahead with your question, and then we'll do the drawing real quick.
Okay, I've had a friend of mine that he's watching this on there. He said whenever I go to Keeneland, I always bet the riders, right? I bet the riders. How come nobody's talking about the riders tonight? So if he's still watching, just kind of explain to him.
I was listening to a podcast, and he said, I like betting horses, not jockeys. I think there are, like if you get, like in New York, where Fox does a lot of their stuff, if you get a horse that just is absolutely going to send to the lead or has not gotten very aggressive rides but a speed horse, and you get like Kendrick Carmouche, who is a speed rider, that could be a positive. What I always think is if the horse isn't good enough, the jockey is not going to make it good enough. If the horse is good enough, the jockey can lose the race, and they can put it in the right spot, but the horse has to be good enough to win. The jockey can't just somehow make the horse a lot better. So, to me, I think with jockeys, you look a lot more like, has Irad Ortiz been riding 3 or 4 of Chad's horses, and then he decides he's going to ride Digital Age? Like, to me, that would be more of a tell. And sometimes the rider doesn't even get to pick, the trainer picks. So it's not, what I always think is you only have so much inside information that it's tough to really know why the riders make a lot of the decisions. Sometimes the owner just says, I absolutely do not want Rosario on there. If you're Venetian Harbor, you can say, I want somebody else who's going to ride to instructions. So every scenario is different, and I think that's why it's hard without knowing all the inside stuff why you would want to ride certain guys or anything else.
Dom, do you want Venetian? Do you want Joel Rosario or no? I like Joel. I just know Dom doesn't want Joel. Here's what I'll say about that is Angel Cordero, Hall of Famer Angel Cordero, told me one time, he said that if there's 10 races in a day, 7 of them are going to win no matter what, and 3 of them the rider made a difference. And I think that's probably a fair assessment. The rider can make a difference to a certain extent. They have to have the horse, but they also have to make good decisions. The other thing is when you're trying to play the jockey musical chair game where you're like, oh, well, Irad was there, but now he's here, and then there's Louis, and Louis there, and Louis was there. There's so many behind-the-scenes things that go on in terms of we're not going to run there, so they commit to somewhere else, and then they get whatever, or the owner took them to Las Vegas, so they want to hang out, they want to stay to the... There's so many things that I've just learned to kind of ignore it unless it's screaming at me at the top of its lungs.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. Like, I only really take that into account if I know that, like, Flavian Pratt could have ridden XYZ and he chose us, but I basically have to know that to feel any level of comfort because it could be 1,000 other reasons. All right, Duncan.
Yeah, I had a question. So, like, take Golden Pal or Tom's Day at Todd. You like both of those horses a lot. Tell me how you go about structuring a bet so you're not doing what I do, win, place, and show, or exact the box. How would you walk us through that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that most horse players have to realize, and some of my best friends, I tell them this all the time, the first thing you have to be willing to do is lose. What I think happens is so many people just want to see the ball go through the hoop that they bet in order to make sure the ball goes through the hoop. So you do a 4-horse trifecta box because you're probably going to hit it, maybe-ish. But you're not making any money. Or you also overspread and pick 4s and pick 5s and pick 6s. You're scared to single a horse because you just want to hit it. You don't want to get lost. And so many people will tell me, I don't want to get beat in the first leg. I don't give a shit what leg it is. I just don't. I want to do what's right for the play. And so in a situation with Golden Pal, I'm going to essentially be ice cold. 90% of my money will be through Golden Pal. I will have a $25 pick 5 when they break from the gate, singling Golden Pal with Jackie's Warrior singled as well and Aunt Pearl singled as well. And if all 3 of them win, I'll be alive for $25. And if one of them loses, then I'll have some backup tickets for $10 or $5 or $4 or $2. The biggest thing I can tell you is stop trying to just try to hit it and try to like really crush it. In this game, it's very hard. You're going to be wrong more than you're right. I don't care who you are. I lose every day. You're going to be wrong more than you're right, but when you're right, you have to make them pay for it. And how do you do that? It's by taking an opinion and pressing it. So I'll single Golden Pal. I'll have some tickets very aggressively with Jackie's Warrior. I'll have a big play into Tom's d'Etat, but I'll also have Improbable and Authentic and some of the other ones. But that's the best way to do it. And I like to do it with multi-race bets, you know. And the other thing you can do with like a Tom's d'Etat, for instance, is you can play an exacta with Tom's d'Etat. You can play let's just say a $25 exacta. Tom's d'Etat with the 3 horses that you also like. Authentic, Improbable, whoever it might be, by my standards, whatever. And then you play a $10 exacta and you flip it. You put those horses on top with Tom's d'Etat in second. So it's kind of like a place bet on crack. It's more aggressive. If you hit the place bet, it's not changing your life. It's probably not changing your day. You know what I mean? You're not reaching into your pocket for the valet money maybe, but you want to try to press that opinion, and that's what I try to do. So when I say I don't exact a box, it's because if I was going to exact a box, Tom's d'Etat, Improbable, and Authentic, I'm essentially saying that all 3 of those horses have the same chance of winning, and that's not my opinion. So I'm going to take the time, and I'm going to make a couple of more tickets to actually express my opinion.
Yeah, and for those of you guys in Medallion, we talk about that some. We talk about it more in shorter fields. But like a perfect example of that was Bo Recall when she ran second to newspaper record in the Just a Game, and we highlighted it to a T. We said you could bet. We do like we do a mock $100 bet suggestion, and we said we could bet $50 to win on Bo Recall. She's going to be 4-1 or whatever, 6-1. But instead of betting to place, we're just going to play a $25 exacta with Uni and newspaper record over Bo Recall. So newspaper record won, Bo Recall ran second. The exacta paid 19-1. Bo Recall paid 8-5 to place. So if you bet to place, you got 8-5. If you just bet an exacta with the 2 logical horses, you got 19-1. And there's absolutely no. I mean, that was a small field, so it's a lot easier to hit the exacta. But it goes back to the exact same thing. It's like if you bet place, you're not, especially if there's a heavy favorite. I mean, you're just lighting money on fire.
And if you want to bet
in the long run,
if you want to bet to win, that's fine. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be multi-race craziness. But I tell friends all the time is you're betting the place thing because it makes you feel a little bit better if you run second. But you have to be prepared to lose that money. If you start protecting that money, it's going to lead you down a bad path of making bad decisions.
All right, we're going to do the cash drawing, and then we'll do a couple more questions. All right, if you want to bring over the Sam, we'll get Molly. We'll answer your question as soon as we do the drawing. All right, so I'll draw one out, then I'll let JK and Megan each draw one out, and then we'll get to 5. So again, this gets you a $100 entry into. Oh man, I got Bruce Drake, number 1. He should be outlawed, I think, but we got Bruce Drake in for an extra $100.
I got a Venetian Harbor owner. I got Nathan McCauley.
All right, I got a Kim Skidmore. Yeah.
All right, you grab one more, JK, and then I'll grab one more.
I got Brian McCarty.
Oh my God. They're only every other ticket in there. We didn't tell you that part. All right, and then I got Lissa McNulty. for the last one. So you 5, you guys got an extra $100 in the betting syndic, courtesy of TaylorMade a Medallion. Oh yeah, if you guys hand the things back, that way they'll pull them, keep them separate. All right, Molly, what's your question? So what I would say, and we used to do a handicapping 101 at the farm, but JK hit on it a little bit earlier, but at the end of the day, if you cannot pick a winner, it doesn't matter what you bet, you lost. And so trying to find the horse that is the most likely winner and focusing, again, for simple bettors, you might be just trying to say, hey, I cashed, and that's the way to get going. Like, I'm going to bet win place because I don't have a huge bankroll. Getting the place money back is a way to sustain yourself over a period of time. And it's just two completely different mindsets. But trying to find the horses that win the race more frequently is step one, because everything else revolves around that. And then it's trying to figure out, what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to have fun and not go broke? Then maybe win place is the right answer. But if you're trying to do it to the next level, I would agree. I basically never bet to place. And if I do, it's because I don't have enough time to really do it. And then I guess the right answer is, if you don't have the time to do it, then you shouldn't do it, period, and you shouldn't bet at all. But that's for people that don't like gambling, so that's not me.
I think part of your question, too, is related to the odds and ignoring that. I mean, I usually end up downloading my form before the morning line odds maker has even put them in. So I think the more it's one of the last things I look at, in fact. I mean, you want to look at it a little bit if you're thinking, okay, well, this horse has some good value at 20-1. But usually I've formed my opinion before I look that way. So if you're looking at where the horse fits as far as the class is concerned, or the distance, or the surface, if you can avert your eyes away from the odds and look at those first and learn to identify which horse really should be favored, sometimes it differs from the morning line odds. Sometimes I'll like a horse that ends up being, 5-1 or something that I thought should have been the 5-2 favorite. So I think just figuring out that class going class, and that's more important, is much more important than whatever the odds are. Because a lot of times, I know some of the morning line odds makers at the tracks, and I disagree with them quite often. We have very different opinions on horses. So it is a person making that, and that is their opinion. It doesn't have to be your opinion.
I think the key word is, you mentioned, is like novice, right? It's like, I think that, like, a lot of times, this idea that gets passed around at the racetrack is that betting chalk is a bad idea. Well, the funny part about it is that if you're betting 5 times a year and you bet 3 favorites and 3 of them win, you're a damn genius. But the problem is that for the grand scheme of things, if you're a guy who's going to show up to the track every day, you're going to bet 4 races a day, you're going to do this for a living, you're going to track your ROI, yes, you have to be careful betting favorites. But if you're a novice player that shows up to the racetrack, you should not be swayed by the odds. Whether you like a horse that's 27-1 or you like a horse that's 4-5, if you like the horse and you want to bet the horse, bet the horse. Don't worry about, is the price too short? That's not the game you're playing. You don't need to worry about that. Like Philip said, just pick the winner. Who gives a shit, And I think the problem is people get so caught up in trying to be the smartest guy in the room. Oh, well, I don't bet 4-5s because I'm too smart for that. It's BS. Play what you like, and if the one has a pretty tail, bet that one too. Oh, Dom. Yeah, so the best tool that I like to use is drfticketmaker.com. drfticketmaker.com. It's essentially an app that was created from the premise of that book that I had mentioned, Exotic Betting by Steve Christ. And it's a way for you to create your wagers with that A and B and C format. You tell it how much you want to bet. You say, I want to bet $500. Here are my A horses. Here are my B horses. And it creates the bet for you and can kind of lay it out in different levels. So I like to use that to avoid the caveman ticket, which is the kind of, 4x4x4x4 by all. That's the caveman ticket that I'm talking about. In terms of speed figures, I think the most consistent is the Beyer speed figure. Now, I think that it can be a little bit, I think that Beyer has become a little bit more conservative over time. The figures were created to let you know if there's a race that was fast. And I think that because it's a commercial product now that he sells, essentially, not sells, it's a commercial product. I think he's scared at times to be wrong, and he'll kind of project a number slower than what it might appear that it needs to be. And so I think you have to tread lightly there, and that's why I started to use Timeform US as well, which is another speed figure that I really like. And for the rest of my life, I'll always have 2 speed figures, because speed figures are created based on science, but there is some objectivity to them as well. So you have to, you kind of want a couple of different angles. So those are the 2 that I use the most.
Yeah. Tetragonal scratched. I think Factor This is really good. I don't think a mile is going to help. I know we had Bo Recall in. She came up a little bit off, so she's not running, but she's also trained by Brad Cox. And he's pretty worried about the mile. The horse is doing really good right now, but he thinks a 1 1/8, 1 1/4 is a better distance for him. He's going to be ridden aggressively, but I just don't know that the distance is going to be to his benefit. And I'll have to look at Likeable and get back to you.
As far as Likeable, here's my answer to your question about that. Likeable ran a speed figure in the last race, the open length, where they won by 8 at Belmont. Reinvestment Risk and Jackie's Warrior together have 7 speed figures. All 7 of their speed figures are faster than that 1 speed figure from Likeable. So he's going to need wings, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. Going back to Factor This, I mean, just looking at his form, what I had written down was too short, ? He's very, very good at what he likes to do. And we talked about this a little bit with some of the other horses, whether it be Gamine going 2 turns or Venetian Harbor going a little bit further. Sometimes horses just have something they like to do. They're better at it. And I think for Factor This, he's 0 for 6 at this particular distance. Yeah, he has a couple of nice second place efforts, but he is not a horse that I think you put in the win column. When JK's talking about you're picking a horse to win, he's not the one for me.
Yeah, and I would say, I could see Likeable. You know, what I like is I think they tried him on the grass first time to get him a race at 2 turns, and it came off the grass. And then he ran a mile, and he won pretty impressively. And he didn't run bad in his first start. Nautilus had a couple of starts prior, so it was a horse with experience. I mean, he's a horse I could see getting in the try for sure. But, you know, I do think that the top couple in there, and I'm not way against Jackie's Warrior or Reinvestment Risk. I just like Essential Quality because he's going to be a little bit more of a price. He's 1 for 1 at Keeneland. And I think he's just got a lot of upside because he's been so green. But I could see Likeable certainly, if things go different, getting in the try.
One of the horses that's interesting to me is the beat Golden Pals, the Learjet. And what do you think they're trying to do with that horse by not running in turf? And he doesn't look like I don't know what this track condition is. GF or GS?
That's good to firm. So the tracks in Europe are terrain, so different parts of the track take water at a different rate than other parts of the track because they're in a lower lying area. So they rate the course in general, and they have more ratings because it's exclusively turf. So GS is good to soft, and GF is good to firm, so it's in between the 2. I just don't know that the Learjet wants 2 turns and wants to stretch out. And in general, if you just look at horses that win those early season, 5 or 6 furlong races at Ascot, they do not project well for 2-turn. And that would be why I'm against Kepignele. JK's right, Hootenanny did it, but Hootenanny was at least by Quality Road. He got completely loose on the front. I think there were reasons why he won, but in general, I think if you look at those horses, they do not come back and run good at the distance. And I would basically be any horse in Europe that's coming over to run a mile 2-year-old race, and they've only ever been 6 furlongs. There's a reason they're keeping them at 6 furlongs in Europe, and it's because they don't think they can win the 7 furlong, 8 furlong races that generally pull the best European horses. The best European 2-year-olds run in the 7 furlong mile races. They don't run in the 6 furlong races. So in general, I'm just against any Euro 2-year-old that is running at 6 furlongs or less, coming to run in a 2-turn race here.
I think he's in there to dodge Golden Pal, and I also think that I hate stretch outs that draw wide. When stretch outs draw wide, they're going to be in the clear. They're going to be losing ground. It's a bigger obstacle, and they're also not going to get cover, so they could run off a little bit more if they want to kind of remember they were sprinters. I think if they're tucked to the inside, sometimes they'll sit in behind a horse, they'll relax, they save ground, then they can kind of produce a run. But I hate stretch outs that are drawn outside.
Just as one note, before we have any other questions, we'll get you a second. There's a gift bag for everybody, so just if you're thinking about leaving, just make sure you pick up a gift bag before you leave. All right, well.
All right, you had it put.
$1,000 to one or $1,000?
$1,000. One horse. This weekend.
Is it your money or my money?
It's your money.
I'd bet 1,000 on Golden Pal. I'd win, and then I'd run it back on Jackie's Warrior.
I'd probably bet Tarnawa would be my 1,000.
And I wouldn't even show up on Saturday.
Yeah.
Monomoy girl.
That's a good one too.
All right, we have any other questions?
Some of the West Coast jockeys, Umberto and Pratt, were you surprised that Mike Smith, no mounts, didn't make the trip?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Personally, we have had a lot of horses in California in the past. I'm not surprised because, not to be down on anybody, but I think he has ridden incredibly subpar to his form this year, and it's not surprising to me. Like, I think out there, he rode for Baffert for so long that a lot of people just have made connections with other riders. So when Baffert shipped a lot of his horses, he's riding Irad, he's riding Johnny V, Luis Saez came out and he didn't get those mounts. It's not like he had a fallback option, and nobody on the East Coast rides him. So it's not, to me, it's not surprising. Like, I hate it because he's the winningest rider in Breeders' Cup history, and he got the name Money Mike for a reason. It's not because he's not good on the big day. But to me, if you just said, hey, you could get him to ride your horse, I could name 20 riders I'd rather have before Mike Smith, and that's just being.
I think COVID had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
You know, I think that, you know, Mike, what Mike has turned into is he's a spot guy.
Yeah.
He plays in spots, and you know that if you hook him on a horse, he'll travel to ride that one horse where, you know, guys like Irad, they're not going to lose an entire day at Saratoga to go to Del Mar to ride one horse that's going to be 5-2. But Mike got to that point where he would do that. And with COVID, he couldn't do that anymore. So I think that probably affected him a little bit on being on some horses. You know, I think there's horses like Improbable. There's a chance he could have ended up on Improbable in Saratoga, but because he couldn't go, it ends up going to Irad. Irad wins on the horse, and Irad's one of the best riders, if not the best rider in the world. So why do you move from there? I think circumstantially, Mike's situation just kind of didn't work out for him. But I'm also a believer in, like, we're streaming this?
Yeah.
Oh.
All these jockeys are great.
The West Coast riders can't warm the East Coast riders up.
Yeah, I would. We have a lot of West Coast horses, and I would completely agree. I think the East Coast, if you don't get Irad or Jose, there's a lot of serviceable guys. In California, if you don't get Pratt or Rispoli, Juan Hernandez on the grass has been good, and Cedillo is pretty good, but it feels like if you don't get one of the top guys, I could go ride him and give him as good of a shot, and that doesn't make anybody feel confident.
He's not attacking 115 either.
No. That's a guarantee. I would bet 1,000 on that for sure.
Our producer says we can mute you, and you can say what you want to say.
We have any other questions?
So we got the number 2 in Remington coming up in 7.
Yeah.
Do we? I'll bet crickets in a circle. I don't care.
All right. Well, I think that's all the questions. We really appreciate you guys for coming out. We really appreciate Bruce and Brian for letting us use this space. So, and a big thank you to Jonathan and Megan for doing this. We really appreciate it. So thank you guys very much. All right, we'll keep you posted on the syndicate. Hopefully we're all celebrating Saturday night.